Hello, welcome back. You should be like, welcome back. Nothing. I'm not even. So, thanks for doing this. I don't know what I was like. I've been here all day with a great signal, and then now that I try to do something, it's in and out. But whatever. At least we got yours to come over here too.
It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy against you.
I think everything. You're right. I think there's some weird negative energy floating around me. I got to get rid of it. I'm gonna smudge the whole town.
You need a sage cleansing or something.
Oh, I got sage. I use sage cones, like little incense cones in my room a lot. And this morning I was like, where's my sage cones? I love the smell. It's relaxing and calming, but I haven't broke out my smudge stick probably in a good 2 weeks. And I think I'm way overdue. I'm way overdue. Anyway, so I'm glad we're up and running again. I hope everyone found their way over. I did leave the link over on my channel. And so we hope we get the word out that we're here.
Yes, and we appreciate everybody coming back. And Dizzy, hey, Dizzy's joining us too.
All right. The more the merrier. A good deal. I think everybody just wants, to get the information. And like I said, again, thank you for being there, and thank you for hosting the night and letting us in on all your notes with you. We appreciate it.
So we started this discussion over on your channel. So let's catch everybody up that didn't hear that real quick. Let's just give a summary. So the state started this morning with Kathy Shank, who was the receptionist at the tip center, and then she got more responsibilities to file the tips from bankers' boxes into file cabinets. And during that process, the Unified Command, I finally got it right. Unified Command moved from the REMC building to the city building, and then they moved to another building. And then it was when they made that second move to the other building that she found this box of miscellaneous tip sheets, lead sheets, in her desk. And she went to file it away in the file cabinet under W for Whiteman, and she realized that might actually be Rick Allen and not Rick Allen Whiteman, and that she should turn that over to, at the time, was a detective and the number 2 in the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Tony Liggett. He took it and gave it to Mullen, who was an investigator. Mullen contacted Dulin, DNR Conservation Officer Dulin. So,
well, you know what? If Carroll County owes her a thank you, then if that's really how that went down, because they haven't done a whole lot else right as far as keeping up with things they're investigating. So if she found it, I mean, good Lord.
She found it in a box of miscellaneous lead sheets in her drawer, according to her testimony today.
That's really horrible. And I know we're all wrapped up in this case, and is this the right guy? Because of course we have all these unanswered questions, and the more that's coming out, we're seeing just how odd and bad this investigation appeared to be, like we thought it was. But man, like, really, you got the tip leading to the guy you're going to come out and tell everybody that is absolutely the guy, sitting in a box in a corner, in a drawer, in a whatever, in a room for 5 damn years. Well, I've never heard them once come out and apologize. And so when this is all over, I'm going to lead that show, because they need to come out and apologize no matter what the outcome of this trial is. They've lost too many things that were important.
There is a whole lot of lost evidence in this case, for sure.
I couldn't believe it when Sarah Carball testified on the stand that they've lost an hour of my interview. That's on them. Like, what, girl? I mean, yeah, you're right. That is on them if that's true. But if they lost a whole hour's worth of her interview, if it was among the many interviews like the alternate suspects, what else have you guys lost in this case we're unaware of yet? Other tips, other leads, other people. You know what I mean? It's insane.
How did Dan Dulin, how did Officer Dulin not put 2 and 2 together? So we have
right.
we have a retired older lady who finds a miscellaneous lead sheet in her drawer and goes to the file cabinet and finds Officer Dulin's narrative, and she puts 2 and 2 together 5 years later. He testified that when the actual murders happened, when he was gone on vacation, he was gone out of town, and when he came back, like the 16th or the 17th, and then so he just came to Unified Command and volunteered his services. So,
okay.
So he volunteered his services to help with the investigation, and he was assigned to picking up these lead sheets and following them through either to their conclusion or just getting a report from the person of interest. With Rick Allen, it was just get the report from the person of interest. And that whole time, if you're that officer and you go talk to somebody that says he was out at the trails that day, very close or very coincident with the time of what happened, what the police say happened, their timeline is, between 2:30 and 4 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, they were unalive. And this is the exact same time, 1:30 to 3:30, that he told Dulin. So how does Dulin just like, okay, I turned in my slip of paper and I'm done. I'm checking out.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I've been saying too. I mean, even if you met with the man, you saw him in person, you took down what he told you, I was there, and not one time in 5 years when even when you're standing on stage with the rest of the police officers talking about it, you never once like, oh yeah, you know what? That guy I spoke to that day, he kind of looked like this, or he might have. He said he was wearing this or that. Not one time did Dan Dulin ever suggest that to anyone. So how much attention were you really paying when you interviewed this man? And at the top, apparently this was marked cleared. This tip narrative or the tip itself was marked cleared at some point or something.
Yes,
To that effect.
in the Orion system.
Oh, someone said, okay, well, obviously it wasn't cleared. And he thought enough to write at the bottom to make sure to figure out who the 3 girls were that Alan said he talked to that day. What was that for? To corroborate if they saw him or not, or this particular man or another man, whatever. But he made a note to find out who these girls were, but didn't make a mental note to go back and say, you know what, I just interviewed somebody who put himself there and described what he was wearing. I mean, not one time. It's crazy. And
Right.
if you guys ever watched Reckoning of Carroll County, you might get an idea of who Dulin is, and then him not being honest is not a stretch. And that's what I'll say about that. So if you get the chance to watch it, watch it.
So Dulin has this interview and he types it up into a Word document, and his original notes that he made on his lead sheet when he talked with Rick Allen in the parking lot of the grocery store are nowhere to be found now.
Yeah.
He said on the stand, because he was challenged on this on cross, he said,
Mhm.
oh, well, the Word document is an accurate representation of my interaction with Rick Allen type of thing. But he was pressed, wouldn't the best representation of that be your original notes? Well, yes. So those are nowhere to be found now.
Isn't that crazy?
He
Well,
says
no, it's not crazy for this case, but that's just crazy. They're like that over there. That it's like no big deal to them that they've lost things that are important.
Right. You have 5 file cabinets full of papers, and you can't take a set of original interview notes and stick them in the file? Like that's going to bust out your drawer or something?
I tell you what, if Ann Taylor was the attorney over there, they would have been producing all those reports. She'd have been on that like nobody's business, because that's all she's about. I want everything. I don't want your official typed up. I want your original handwritten, any emails, anything you talk to anybody about at any point. I want it. It's just crazy that it turned out like that. You know, even we all had a suspicion that what's going on here when we realized, oh, they went back and found this tip. How'd you find it? Where'd you find it? What do you mean it was lost for 5 years? Who took the original tip? And then you got to think, well, that person never dawned on him that that guy I interviewed in that parking lot at that grocery store, you know, did you not remember the name of the person? You couldn't go back and find it in your own notes. You're like, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm going to look stupid. I mean, what the hell? You kind of do look stupid at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know if he came across as stupid to the jury today, but he was definitely challenged on some key points.
Yeah.
But that's why the defense team didn't hire you.
I'm getting the impression though this jury's really paying attention to the details of the investigation itself as well.
They
Not
are
just
for the most part, but occasionally from time to time they get bored, and we'll get
yeah.
into that in a little bit, because there's an exchange between Andy Baldwin and Mullen that took a long time to get through, and they definitely got bored during that little exchange, but we'll get to that after a bit.
Okay.
And this direct, he says that he ran a BMV. So he got a copy of Rick Allen's driver's license, and he ran his BMV report, and he included that BMV report. That's probably the third page that I was thinking of that was in the file. He ran a BMV report, so he made a copy of the driver's license, ran his BMV report, and included that with his narrative of the report, with his Word document. So then there's
I'm sorry, Jared. I don't mean to interrupt, but Butterfly was saying that All Eyes had a question here, but I was reading it just now. Yeah, so there were 23 devices seized from Allen's home, and you're saying the 2017 phone was missing because it was traded in during a standard upgrade. Oh, okay. Because I haven't delved, took a real good look at that yet, but I knew they stated that the phone he used in 2017, they didn't have that phone. So that makes sense if it was an upgrade and you have to turn it back in. Because I know with my son's iPhone, if I go to do his upgrade like next month or whatever it is, I'll turn that one back in and get the new one. So
so that comes in during Holman's testimony today at the end of the day.
Okay. All right, good.
So they go through all the pictures of what they seized, and two of those pictures are a bag full of phone chargers and then a whole bunch of phones. And yes, they testify, Holman testified that the 2017 phone wasn't in there, and then on cross, Baldwin asked him a question about that we'll get to later.
Okay.
Got to keep you on your toes.
Yes, right.
State's Exhibit 232 is the top half of the lead sheet, plus the narrative as entered into Orion. The jury gets to see it. We do not get to see it.
Those exhibits that will be presented at the end of the day for media to glance at for 15 minutes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're the most important part of the public is the media, according to Judge Cole.
Yeah, we think Ali Mata should have been allowed to look at those, Mrs. Gull. You should have told her no. And we count her as social media, so she's media. Dang it!
Right, media is in the word social, in the phrase social media, right?
Right. I got to mute out for 1 second, but I'm listening.
Yes, and Andrea Burkhart with her motion too, which was at least addressed by Judge Gull. It was denied, but it was addressed. She said, "You're no party to these proceedings, so you can't get a copy of the audio recording, and everything else you said in your motion is just complaining about how I'm running this trial, so denied." That's what Judge Cole said to Andrea. Then let's see. So they talked about the Orion system, and so we skip forward. So we go from February 18th, which is when he did his interview of Rick Allen, to September of 2022. And he was contacted by Mullen about his Rick Allen lead. And off the top of his head, he didn't remember talking to Rick Allen. So he goes into his computer, which apparently was the same computer he was using then. He does this little search. He actually does a search for Richard Allen, and he comes up with that Microsoft Word document that he created that was a narrative of his interview with Rick Allen from 2017. So then he goes in and does a search for Richard Allen in the state DNR database for people who have applied for fishing and hunting licenses. He finds him and his wife, Kathy, have had fishing licenses for quite some time. And McClellan, so the report that comes out from this, from his probing of the DNR database, he calls it a POS, point of sale system. It lists their name, address, phone number, email, and their height and weight. This becomes an issue because he says on April 1st of 2017, which is 2 weeks approximately after the thing happened with Abby and Libby, 2 weeks after that, he applies for a fishing license and he changes his height to 5'6" and he changes his weight to add 15 pounds. And of course, McClellan is spinning this to look like it's suspicious that he's trying to, divert attention away from himself and his height and his weight. And my first thought with that initially in the courtroom is, I don't remember what the supposed height and weight for Bridge Guy was, but I'm pretty sure. So reminding you, he changed his height. In 2016, it was listed as 5'4". In 2017, he changed it to 5'6". And I'm pretty sure that 5'6" is actually closer to the suspected height of the suspect Bridge Guy than 5'4" would have been. I'm pretty sure they said the height was somewhere like 5'6" to 5'9" or something like that. And I'm trying to go back and find those press conferences or those flyers that show when they didn't know who Bridge Guy was, what the suspect height was. And I'm 99.9% sure that 5'6" is closer. So if he's actually changing his height and weight on his fishing license application to avoid detection, he just changed it to be closer to the suspect height. Bridge Guy. Hey, Kelt. Hey, good to see you. Glad you finally found alive. Glad you finally found me alive.
Joe. So that was interesting that Dulin said he went back into the system, or not the system, but he researched into things. And I guess being a conservation officer, that prompted him to look at the fish and wildlife stuff. And so Alan allegedly changed his height and weight on his fishing license, but not anything else. No other identifications, no driver's license changes, not only your fishing license.
Correct.
Interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that they're trying to spin it like that makes him look like he's trying to avoid detection of some kind when he's actually changing it to be closer to Bridge Guy than further away.
Well, why would you just change your fishing license? They're not out there looking for a fisherman. I'm saying to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yes, you are correct. And April, so they changed it on April 1st, and April is actually like one of the earliest times that you can apply for licenses because they're good the whole year round. So the earlier you do it, like the more it benefits you financially. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a fishing license. I have Florida Fish and Game, Wildlife, all the things. And you have to, you don't want to get caught without one because you'll get a big damn ticket. So you're always up, renewing your stuff. But a lot of times you don't change that type of information. You don't even, it just remains the same. You know what I mean? Especially for a grown-up. A child, teenager is going to change from time to time as they grow. But for a grown man to all of a sudden go in and change his identification stuff on his fishing license, of all things,
Right.
I don't.
And yeah, and that's a great point. That's actually a very great point. And I think Rosie could have like probably brought that up.
Oh, I'm telling you, there's a lot of things I think Rosie could have brought up already that I'm making notes. I'm like, I should email him. I'm like Bob
I
Martin now.
actually
Why didn't you ask this? Why didn't you ask that?
I actually met somebody this morning standing in line that golfs with him. Actually, two guys that were behind me in line both golf with him.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
they got good seats today. They didn't have to go to the public seat.
imagine that.
No, there's nothing nefarious about it. They actually went
No,
and
I
sat
mean, yeah,
they went and sat with the family seats because not only do they know Nick, but they also know the family, the German family, and
yeah.
there were a lot of hugs and a lot of things and how did you get in here? Like that type of kidding thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they'll let anybody in here, but a couple of good guys, really good guys. I mean, we stood in line together for 4 hours, so we got to know each other pretty well. And
Yeah,
one of them is an IU fan, and I brought my Purdue blanket to cover me up. And at one point in time, he was chilly, so I lent him my Purdue blanket. And his friend threatened to take a picture of an IU fan in a Purdue blanket.
right. Like, I don't care what kind of blanket it is right now. I'm cold.
Exactly. That's pretty much what he said. But he said, "Don't take a picture."
That'd be like me trying to put, I don't even do football, but I'm from the South and I'm on the Alabama Florida line. But that'd be like me putting one of them damn roll tide blankets on me.
Right.
No, ain't happening. No, I'm not
Well,
going to freeze. It would happen.
Kel, yes, I did get in. I got up in the line a little bit before 4 o'clock and was there all day long.
Oh my goodness. He just made a good point too. Catfish, looking at fish, and buying fish. Oh, wow.
Ooh.
Ooh, right? Oh, Kel, come on now. You're going to send us down another rabbit hole.
That's 2 rabbit holes. That's 3 rabbit holes in one.
Right? Wow.
We will talk about looking at fish later because that does come in today.
Mm.
So at 10:37 in the morning, Rosie begins his cross of DNR Conservation Officer Dulin. He said, so Richard Allen contacted you guys voluntarily, right? And he cooperated with LE and he promptly met with you. And you said that he refused to meet you at home or at an LE place, but didn't he tell you on that conversation that he was actually on the way to the grocery store and that's why he wanted to meet you in the parking lot because he was already headed there? And Dulin says, I don't recall. Is it
Yeah.
possible? I guess so.
You, huh? Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I don't find if you're talking to somebody and you call them and you're like, okay, we need to follow up with your tip, with your information, and you ask if I can come to your home. They're like, no. Well, can you meet me at the police station? No. I'm like, right then you're red. I just red flagged you. But I guess Dulin didn't think that was a red flag if that was actually what Rick Allen said to him. Like, I'm not coming down there. I refuse. Meet me in the parking lot. That would have been a red flag and might have made you remember your interview with him a little more than you did.
Right. Well, McClellan definitely red flagged it today. So Rosie's trying to do some damage control on that. Then they have a discussion about the lead sheet. And on the lead sheet, it says, so originally the lead sheet reports that Rick Allen reported that he was there between 1 and 3 p.m. But then when he talked to Dulin, he changed it to 1:30 to 3:30, which is very, very important. Remember that because it comes up later.
Yeah.
5 years later. But the question was, so was he telling you that he was there for the entire time from 1:30 to 3:30, or was he just there sometime between 1:30 and 3:30? And
Mm.
Dulin's like, no, my interpretation is he was there that entire time. And then Rosie kind of presses him on a little bit, and they just like don't come to an agreement. Rosie didn't get the answer. But as he's doing this, as
Well,
Rosie is challenging Dulin, and Dulin says he interpreted it as those are his arrival and departure times, Rick Allen noticeably shakes his head no again, several times during this entire back and forth between Rosie and Dulin. He's like, he is not agreeing with what Dulin's saying. No, I didn't tell you that I was there that entire time. I don't. So, but obviously he's not going to take the stand ever. So that's kind of curious to me to have the defendant who's probably not going to take the stand. Like there's 0.0000001% chance that he's going to take the stand in his own defense. But
yeah, they're not all Sarah Boone.
Right,
most of the time they don't.
He's sitting there. He's sitting there at the defense table, shaking his head no, while the witness is testifying. And that's interesting to me. And I'm sure probably some of the jurors probably saw it too. So that's interesting.
Oh yeah. You're going to notice that because if I'm on the jury, I'm also watching the defendant for reactions, even though I know they're told not to react by the defense attorneys. I've seen people already having that conversation, but if you watch trials, they are coached not to show emotion, because you don't want to make an impression on the jury either way. But I understand shaking your head no if they're like sitting there telling something that's not true. You're going to want to point that out to your attorney and have them follow up on that. But I noticed people had been saying Rick didn't have a whole lot to say and do, or show a lot of emotion or reactions to things until today when during this testimony and stuff. So.
Yes. And so then Rosie presses him on the incorrect name. And he says, when you got that lead sheet, did it have the incorrect name on it? Yes, it did. It was Richard Allen Whitman. So when you contacted Richard, did he continue to go by that name? No. He told me his name was Richard Allen. So Rosie kind of pushed him on that a little bit. So do you think that so it appears like he wasn't trying to deceive anybody and operate under an alias. And I think McClellan may have objected to that, or maybe Dulin just said, I can't testify to that. No, McClellan definitely objected to that because it was speculation, speculation, and that was sustained, of course. And then the very last point was Farm Bureau building. So this is Rosie on cross of Dulin still. Farm Bureau building was Dulin's mistake when Richard Allen described parking at the DCS building, which we've already gone over. And you don't know who entered the updated height and weight on the fishing license application. So the insinuation was that it was possibly Kathy that bought those fishing licenses online, and she may have entered Rick Allen's height and weight. She wasn't specifically mentioned by Rosie, but reading between the lines, that's kind of what he's insinuating. You don't know who bought those fishing licenses. You don't know who entered that updated height and weight for him, do you? No, I don't know that. There was something from McClellan that doesn't make sense, and then we went back. You don't know who did that, do you? No, I don't. So they went into this thing about how, yeah.
I'm sorry, I was laughing at Kelt's comment, that last one. So when I renew my license, I do it online as well. I actually have an app here in Florida, because Florida residents get the discount, we get different things. So if I have to renew, I do it on the app. And I don't recall ever needing to update that type of information about my height and weight. I'm not even sure if it's got that on there, like my weight, like my, like your driver's license does here in Florida. So that's interesting. But yes, that's very true. He could have been like, hey, hon, can you do this for me online? Yeah, I got this. Maybe she entered it wrong. Because I find it odd that that's the only thing they found that he changed identifiers of himself on. It's just weird.
Yeah, and Nick McClellan went out of his way to say, okay, so based on that application that what the IP address was, and by the way, he didn't ever ask what that IP address was, and neither did Rosie on Cross, and I definitely would have. Where exactly was that IPS or that IP address from? Was it Rick Allen's house? Okay, that's fine. let's assume that it was made with Rick Allen's credit card, and it was made on Rick Allen's DNR online account. All things of which Kathy had access to, right?
Right.
And a lot of times, if you've purchased several fishing licenses in the past, and they had, because they asked him about data that went all the way back to 2005, your credit card is automatically stored in there. Like I have a ton of those subscriptions and recurring payments that my credit card data is stored in there.
Yeah, we all think a lot of us do, where we can store our payment options online and for reoccurring charges and things of that nature. Cell phone bills or whatever you got, you can do that. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for that to happen, especially with a married couple. A lot of the women do still take care of a lot of that type of stuff for the men. Hey, honey, I need this done or that done. They're just like, okay. So I don't find that too very odd to me to make a difference here. Do you know what I mean? And it's suspicious to me that it's a fishing license tied to the DNR guy. That's what he does for a living, and that's also the guy that took your tip that lost it. And then no, see, it's just weird.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Now it's just crazy that they want us to follow along and believe their little story that they're making up or telling us. I mean, I get it when you finally figure out it's Richard Allen, not Whitman, however you pronounce it. Now you're going to go dig in and find out who this guy is, right? You're going to look at everything that you can think of that you could find out about him. But lo and behold, the only thing y'all could find was a fishing license update.
Right. And why didn't he do that in 2017?
Right. Why didn't he remember in 2017, a week later, when they're saying, hey, we've got this image of this bridge guy? He didn't say, oh my God, that guy I interviewed in the parking lot that day, he said he was there. He said he was wearing these types of clothing. Wow, we need to check him out a little further. Never once crossed his damn mind. Not even in the whole 5 years. But then again, like I said, Shady Dulin's got a shady past, so I don't put a lot of stock into what Dan Dulin's telling me. Now, maybe I'm biased because of what I've seen, but yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm having a hard time with it.
So then the next thing they get into a thing that goes back into his historic licenses and how some of his licenses in the past say he was 5'6", and Dulin says, well, maybe that was probably updated when he entered the new 5'6" on April 1st, 2017. I don't want to go down that. That's just purely nonsense. So Dulin apparently got a bunch of cell phone reports from cell phones that pinged off of a certain tower that was close to the Monon High Bridge on February 13th of 2017 with thousands of numbers in it. And so they talked about there were lots of other people in that. There were lots of people in the area at the time. And Dulin said yes, but that's also partially because Hoosier Heartland Highway goes right by there. So there were a lot of people going by, at that time on Hoosier Heartland Highway on February 13th. Mm-hmm. So he was tasked with actually calling those phone numbers that he got from that.
I saw that report, or did that today, that he was tasked with calling the numbers that pinged in that area. So if these are legit numbers that were legitimately pinged, are you going to leave? I mean, I guess if you're short on manpower, you'll ask him to take a look at. But if these are the pings that are right there in your crime scene location area, wouldn't you really want investigators to check out those phone pings and who they belong to and do all the things? But instead, you're going to go send Dan out there to do it all. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. I feel like that's, especially if it's phone pings right there in close to the ground zero, you're going to want to do thorough investigations of the phones. So that's outside of the geofence warrant type thing, but still, That's a lot of, and I get there's probably a lot of cars. If they're even picking up the vehicles passing the highway like that, the Hoosier Heartland, because I would do that as well if I was them, because that was one of my first thoughts before I realized where this location was, the bridge and the trails. You know, could it have possibly been somebody on that highway who stopped off to take a break or whatever, and you know, crime presented itself and they took it and they got back in their car and went on about their merry business across the country. Yeah, it could have happened, but it didn't seem like it once you realize the location of this and all the things. So if you got to think it could be very local. So I don't know. Would he be the only one I sent out to talk to those people? No. I would have put all the good investigators on those phones to figure out who the people were. So
right, and you would have had a script. You would have had, okay, you're going to ask them this question, and based on
yeah,
their response, you're going to follow up with this question. Then you're going to ask them this question. Then you're going to follow up with this question. I mean, yeah, there's a scientific way to do an investigation,
yeah.
and then there's the way that Carroll County did it.
Yeah, what we're seeing, they did a lot of things sketchy. Mm.
Just even if there's no ill intent, like just the ineptitude is mind-boggling. The things that they
Yeah,
didn't do that are done on 99%
a
of other
state, right?
investigations in other jurisdictions.
The standard things you would do,
Right.
they decided they didn't need to do, like leaving the sticks that were on top of the bodies, not taking them right away. We'll just get those later if we decide we need them. Oh wait, we might need them. What? No, you don't do that. So they've made a lot of missteps. And I was just reading a comment there from Nobody Nothing 1717. The cars ECU and ECM. I haven't looked up that car make and model yet, but I see Kelt's comment back to you about that. So over there in the Idaho 4 case, there's been a lot of talk about stuff like that, right? With like Brian Koberger's car. It was a 2015 Elantra. Now, with that type of car, I don't know about Rick's car because I haven't looked into it yet. You have to pay for the subscription, right? Um, if for your like your infotainment, whatever they call it, package. Now, a lot of cars, like in the Murdaugh trial, that his vehicle told them a lot, and it contradict what he was saying because he had all that though, so they can collect a lot of data from the cars alone. You are correct. Now, whether or not Rick's car had the capability, or if it was a subscription service he needed for it to record all the things with the car, but I would be checking that out for sure if I was an investigator. I need to know what this car was doing on that day. And that would help a whole lot, right? Because you could see the car's movements, GPS locations at different times, um, and it would give you the times of day of where things were happening. So that's a good question, and something we need to look into if it's not brought up in court. Because I would be asking that same question.
Well, supposedly in opening statements, and I'm really disappointed I wasn't there for opening statements, Baldwin hinted at that. He hinted at, we can prove that he wasn't there
Oh,
at the
like
time that the state says that he was there. So I
I
wonder if,
recall that. You're right. That was said. So it makes me wonder now, does the car have that information stored to it? And can we get, if I was the defense attorney, I would have it.
yes.
No
Yeah.
matter
I
what
mean,
it says, you're still going to want to look at it, right?
they have their own investigator. So did the investigator do
Yeah,
his job?
probably so.
Uh, so this is the next couple of points that come in are on cross are very interesting. So
Yes, Kel, the VIN number. I don't know if we have the VIN number in the Brian Koberger case to his car. It's listed on the search warrant return for the vehicle. Now, I haven't seen this. I've seen the search warrant return from Alan's home, but not on the car. So that's very interesting too. We'll have to see if we can come across that VIN number anywhere. I'll have to ask Sleuthie if she's got it.
So then we get into the fact that Officer Dulin, Conservation Officer Dulin of the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, went out to the crime scene multiple times starting on February 17th to assist in the investigation. But here's the thing, because he was a conservation officer, he didn't have, it appears to me, and this is me reading between the lines of his testimony today and the questions on direct and cross, that he didn't have as structured of an investigation orders or directive as the rest of law enforcement, because the rest of law enforcement was Delphi Police Department, Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Indiana State Police, the FBI. All those
Yeah.
people have their protocols and they have their chain of command, and
Right. So
they have a
all the
set
more,
way, and
yeah,
he's kind of like a lone wolf out there with the Indiana DNR.
yeah. So all the more reason to task your most important parts of your investigation, looking into these numbers that pinged close to our crime scene. You would want that task to investigators who know what they're doing versus someone who may not think it's important to record the statement of the witness. Because at that point, Rick Allen was a witness. I'm placing myself at the bridge, and here's what I saw. That's a witness, like everybody else, like Carball, like Betsy Blair, just like everybody else. At that point, he was still just a witness as to what was out there that day. So, I mean, but still, you're gonna task that type of stuff to, I don't know. It just don't make any sense. Go ahead.
No, it well, and the fact that he's a lone wolf is he can set his own schedule. He can set his own scene of investigation, like where does he want to go. And speaking of that, on one of his first trips out there, it may have been his second trip out there, but I think it was his first, on February 17th, he found sticks and branches near the crime scene or at the crime scene with blood on them.
What now?
After the crime scene had been cleared, as in not secured anymore by anybody, telling people who can go in and who can't, he found sticks and branches with blood on them, and he called somebody in Unified Command and said, hey, you probably should come out and pick these sticks and branches with blood on them up.
And so they didn't think to take them in the beginning, but now it's going to cross somebody's mind that we should have got these, because
And
we
guess
heard in
what?
testimony that
They didn't even
that
take them. They didn't even take them right then.
they never took. Oh my, wow! Because we heard that.
They took them a couple weeks later.
Yeah, exactly. And because they were talking about how they were, crumbly and whatever, but you had to, there's ways to recover your evidence without destroying the evidence. I mean, it's not a perfect thing by no means, but I still think those would have been very important to take, especially to try to find some trace DNA, spit, saliva that might have missed the body and landed on a stick instead. There's all kind of things that could have come from those sticks, especially if the person picked them up and placed them on the bodies. There could have been, I don't know how well they can recover fingerprints from sticks and tree limbs and all that stuff, but I still, I know enough to know that you don't just leave them laying out there for weeks before you go collect them, because now they're contaminated. Now they're not preserved. Now they're of no use to anybody. I mean, they could be, but they're not. You know what I
they're in
mean?
the woods, and you don't even know if they're the same sticks that were actually on the girls.
True. And what other animals could have come up and peed on them, licked them, just tasted excuse my language, guys, but licked the blood, or, different things. Animals are animals. They're going to do that. So you don't know what all those sticks went through in the 2 weeks you left them out there without collecting them. The elements they were exposed to anything and everything. That's insane. That's another one of their missteps, along with losing valuable recordings and misfiling tips and not collecting the evidence that was there. It's like I already got a lot of problems with your case. Now you just made it tenfold. Mm.
So he encountered sticks and branches near the crime scene with blood on them. He also noticed deer stands in the area. And in his deposition, he testified that it's not uncommon to find unspent rounds and spent cartridges in the neighborhood, in the area where people go hunting on a regular basis.
That's right. It's not uncommon.
But
My dad has tree stands.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, my dad has tree stands. My dad's a bow hunter, a gun hunter, muzzleloader hunter. If it hunts, my dad's doing it. So trail cams, they're everywhere, right? So if there's a deer stand nearby, chances are there's probably going to be a trail cam nearby because they're going to want to see here in Florida you can put out corn, right? You can feed. So there are very specific rules about what you can and cannot do. But so my dad can sit at home with his little SIM card reader thingy he's got, and he can review all the stuff that was on his cam trails, But 9 times out of 10, if there's a deer tree stand in a tree somewhere, there's going to be a camera nearby. Now, 2017 there may not be as much as there are now. This is new technology to my dad. You know what I'm saying? My brothers have been using them for a while. Or when my dad first got his, he was like, oh, this is cool as shit. But yeah, if all that's going on, there's probably some close to the area. Now, the other day when it was mentioned that, what was it, Officer Katrin, how do you say his name? I got it right there. Okay. He was the one that mentioned a trail cam nearby, but I could have sworn they said the address was like 507 or something. I wrote that down and I Googled that address. And if I heard it correctly, that's not really close enough to the crime scene to make me think anything would be seen on that particular trail cam. But
or
as you
anything
move
relevant to the crime.
right, exactly. So, but right there close in that area, if you can see tree stands within that area close enough, I'd be looking for the trail cams that might be out there as well. And I guess they didn't find any that had anything on them.
There are rumors that he was seen on the trail cam a couple days before somewhere near the area, but that's
I heard that too, but they need to prove it.
Right.
That you need to produce it and show us that that's true, because
And
otherwise
why
it's
doesn't
hearsay.
LE have that? Why doesn't law enforcement have that?
Right, because otherwise it's just hearsay and it's not admissible. Right, Goal? Not admissible. Hearsay. You can't just come to me and say, you know what? I know I saw him on my trail cam walking around a couple of days. Well, I need to see that now. Oh, I don't have it no more. Well, then otherwise it's just hearsay then.
But anyway, Rosie was insinuating that because there were deer stands out there, there were hunters out there, and because there were hunters out there, there was a good likelihood of there being spent and unspent rounds out there. McClellan objects on some grounds. Some, I don't remember what it was. It gets granted, so we don't get to hear what Dulin's response to that was. Then there's redirect by McClellan, who purchased the April 1st, 2017 license. Well, it was done on Rick Allen's credit card with Rick Allen's IP, with Rick Allen's login and password to the DNR website. That still doesn't answer who did it, because it could have been Kathy. 100% it could have been Kathy, but Rosie doesn't bring that up.
Well, it's circumstantial.
I would have jumped all over that.
I would have too. At this point, it's like, if I'm sitting on that jury, I promise you that's not going to hit that hard with me. I'm like, well, that's a little sus, but that doesn't mean anything. Like it doesn't prove anything. It's just a fishing license discrepancy. Huh.
Right.
Maybe he typed in the wrong button. He pushed the wrong one by accident.
So Rosie kind of does on recross. I mean, he says, you don't know who changed the height and weight on that fishing license application, do you? No, sir. You never
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, they have no way of knowing unless they ask Kathy, did you do it? And she's like, no, I've never fooled with that. That's all Rick.
Right. Then his next question, which may be the most interesting question for us to ponder. In those years in between when you first interviewed him and you went back and started reinvestigating in 2022, quote unquote, you never once thought, hey, should I contact Richard Allen? No. And then the jury has a question. Do you remember what Rick Allen's hair was like when you did the interview? No, I don't recall. And then there was some question about the lead sheet that he had, and I didn't catch the question or the response. It didn't seem very important. And then we took our first break at 11:18.
You know, I mean, Dan doesn't recall much about the guy he spoke with in that parking lot, so it must have been very uneventful. Nothing about that conversation, red flagged to him, which doesn't make any sense to me. So, you have to wonder, it's me, I wonder, I'm going to say it like that, because things I have seen, I know the jury doesn't know what I have seen unless they've watched it, but I'm already going to have questions about Dan Dulin's memory recall, his ability to be honest, things of that nature about what's really going down. And are you going to say and do what you got to do to save yourself in the end? But you're looking pretty, you've been looking bad for a while now, especially when it came out what your name was, that you were the one that didn't follow up on that tip like that. I mean, I still have a hard time with, he met that man face to face, was told I was wearing this jacket, this type of pants. And then when the images were coming out of Bridge Guy, it never dawned on him. Like, you just recently talked to this man. It wasn't like the video came out 5 years later and Dan just could have been legit forgot, whatever. No, it was all right then, a few days of all this was going down. And you still never once remembered that guy I spoke with told me what he was wearing. And that's what that dude, and that, it just don't make any sense. I'd have a lot of follow-up questions for that man if I was the attorney. Might have got overruled by what's her name, or the prosecution would have objected and she probably would have been on their side, but I still would have brought it up. You can't unsay it once you say it. It can be stricken from record, but you're going to say it.
Right. You can't unring the bell.
And then you put that into the jury's mind a little bit. You know what I mean? Made them think about something. But yeah, there was a lot of questions there. But I guess they got to do what they're going to do.
So after break, we come back and the state calls Steve Mullen, investigator Steve Mullen. And I got to refresh my memory. I don't remember what agency Mullen is with.
He was with the Delphi Police Department.
That's what I thought. He's Delphi investigator. Yeah.
He was, because you got the Carroll County and then you got the city, because here we have our county and we have our city, and the city's a lot smaller because you got a small city limit, but your county, we got a large county. So our sheriff's department patrols the county. So yeah, he was part of the Delphi PD is just down the street from the sheriff's department. But yes, Mullen was with the police department.
Correct. Okay. That was what I thought, but I didn't hear it when he was asked. Okay, so yes, Liggett got the lead sheet from Kathy Shank, and he passed it on to Steve Mullen. Mullen called Dulin, and Dulin sent him his files. So Dulin did his little computer search, found his files, sent it to Mullen. Realized that nobody had spoken to Richard Allen since February 18th of 2017. So he did a little BMV search on him, found out that he's got 2 cars. And then they went and looked at the Harvest Store video because they had the narrative from Dulin's report that said what time Richard Allen said he was there. So they went to the Harvest Store and they got this video. And this video becomes a huge bone of contention. And it's
a big problem.
Yes, it's something that the defense is going to have to deal with, and they kind of did today, but I don't know that they allayed all of the
I don't
jury's
know. Well, if I was the
questions.
defense, if I'm the defense, the way I'm fixing to deal with it is not the way you would expect. Because first of all, you took all right, and I cannot help but go back to Idaho 4. There's a screenshot of a car taken from a gas station. The gas station attendant took the screenshot of the video. The video shows allegedly a white Elantra passing by. But we've never seen the video. Okay, but we are assuming the police have it. We don't know if it is in, pertains to the case or not, not like the Linda Lane footage. But here's the thing. When he went down to the harvest store that, in the very beginning and reviewed their video footage, that he just took screenshots of the cars that were passing by, but left the video surveillance footage with them. And then he goes back in 2022 and collects that video surveillance. Now, through the multiple investigations I've looked at over the time, a lot of businesses do a 30-day loop. It records over. So lo and behold, the only thing not recorded over in this case is your Hoosier Harvester surveillance video, and they still had it 5 years later. Make that make sense. And I wish people would hit on that a little more because he did go back allegedly and retrieve the video at that point. I'm having a hard time. So what are they doing? They're taking certain tapes. Okay, recorded for a week solid. Now I'm going to take this one and put it in the drawer, put a new tape in. We're going to save them all. I mean, really? I mean, they could. Good for them if they do. But they still had it 5 years later is amazing to me. And the fact that he didn't take that surveillance video from the beginning, because I'm sorry, you got Betsy Blair telling you, or not Betsy, I'm sorry, Betsy Carball, I saw a man walking muddy and bloody. Did he walk past that camera to get back to his car? Because he would have had to do that. But all you're doing is screenshotting cars passing by on the camera. Did you not see a man walking toward his car? He had to pass that building to get to his car, regardless, unless he can fly like Superman and just flew over all that shit. Not buying that either. Sorry, Joe.
Are you talking about Muddy Bloody guy?
I mean, any guy, anybody. I'm sorry, Investigation 101. If that road, 300 North, is right there by where the girls were dropped off, and you go and review that footage and you're taking a screenshot of all the cars passing by, you need to take that whole damn video with you, because now you got to go find out, if you can, what kind of cars these were, make, models. Go to the FBI. They can help you out with that. Car identification. I've deep dove that because of the Koberger case. There's a lot of things you can do, and you need that video. You don't leave it with them for 5 years and only walk out of there with some screenshots of a few cars you took as they passed by that building. What are you going to do with that? And did you ever see a man walking past that building? They're going to irritate me. I have to go to Indiana. Lord.
Well, apparently Lawyer Lee and Andrea Burkhart felt like they needed to.
Right? I can imagine if I'm feeling this way, I'm sure they're feeling like they probably wanted to jump up and say, objection, I have a question for this witness, redirect, their instincts would have taken over. I'd have gotten thrown out if I was him. I'd have been like, no.
I
No.
think Bob kind of hinted at something like that earlier today. He's like, he got really wrapped up into the Baldwin Cross of Tony Liggett, and I actually did too. I found myself like forgetting that I was taking notes, and there was like 5 minutes of testimony that I forgot to take notes on because I was just like
Well,
watching
you're
back and
you're
forth.
listening and all the
Yeah.
and taking it all in. And that's one of my favorite parts of a trial, is hearing that and watching the interaction, because all that's important. The line of questioning, the context, the tone, the expressions they make while they're having these interactions, things like that. And from what we all heard, when Sarah testified, she was combative, and things like that nature. And as a jury, you're watching all that. But, so it's important. But I get you. I would have been listening too, and I would have been like, "Oh, shit, I forgot to write that down." I would have been like,
They
"Ma,
were
I
they
got a
entered
headache sitting at home. I couldn't imagine being there too."
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And then the waiting out in the cold, and then the waiting up in the rotunda and going up and down the marble stairs, and then sitting still and having to be so quiet for hours on end in the court. Yeah, it it wears
Yeah.
on you. And I can't imagine all these people, because I am not going to be there anywhere near as much as all these other people. There have been people that have been there every day and are committed to being there every day till the end of the
Yeah.
trial, which could last for
Yeah.
another month.
Yeah, I thought about that too last night. Like, just reviewing Bob, Andrea, and Lawyer Lee alone, the 3 of them. I don't think about, murder people. I don't even consider them. But it's gotta be very, very maybe that's part of Gull's plan. They'll just get tired and give up and go home. No, lady, I don't think it's gonna be that easy to get rid of everybody. But it's very difficult for them to be out there, like you're saying. They have to get out there early and try to get that seat, and then be in there all day, and then get out of there in the evenings and try to get your notes together and get it out to the public, because we see that mainstream media is doing that. And I've watched more of them lately, or than I care to, you know what I mean? Um, but they're not even getting it accurate in some cases. The reporting is very different. And then when you take, you got a handful of people in there, everybody, and I do appreciate everyone's take, but what I might find important may not be what the person next to me finds as important. You know what I mean?
No,
So,
absolutely, 100%.
yeah.
Like I was before we jumped on, I was watching Bob, and he had a couple of comments and notes on a couple of these testimonies. I'm like, I don't remember hearing it that way. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but
Mhm.
I don't remember hearing it that way.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple of times too when I'm reviewing. Because this morning I was, like, really making some really good, because this weekend I wanna do a show and kinda recap everything from the week, so I'm trying to really make sure I got the best information possible, and there are different takes on it, Um, but it is what it is. I'm just trying to make sure I get the core of it, as accurate as we can. But it's
Yeah,
it's difficult for all of us, and we know that, but we do appreciate you so much.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm doing this honestly for Abby and Libby. Like
Yes.
if
And
go
yeah.
ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
If it weren't for that, I'm not gonna go sit out on the freezing cold concrete for hours on end. I mean, honestly, I mean, I have better things to do. I have actual like work to do.
Right.
And
Right. It's hard because I think a lot of people see that, people like us who have questions about the investigation and about the case. Well, you're not here for the victims. Yes, I am. I promise you that. To me, yes, Rick Allen needs a fair shot at this. He deserves it like everybody else does. All defendants do, but the victims get so lost in these cases. And I felt that way with Idaho 4. I have felt that way with these girls. Like I've told you, I have followed from the beginning, from the very day they went missing, all the way to today. Never thought this case would end up here like this, but it is absolutely for those girls. I will never throw shade at the girls or their families, because I promise you, you lose a child, you do not need to sit in judgment of anything a parent says, unless you can prove that parent done something wrong, but you can't. So you do not know what they feel, what they think. You honestly don't really know. They're going to come out and they may talk, but they're not going to tell you their real true feelings. And so I don't like it when they get a lot of shade thrown at them, because there's really no reason for it. It's not. And the girls deserved better. Libby was taking criminology classes. Libby obviously tried to give a clue. Whether Bridge Guy did it or not, she felt enough to, I guess, take a video. We don't even know if that's real at this point. But I think it, they weren't served well in this case, just from the investigative standpoint. Losing things, misplacing things, recording over interviews, and all of that was a slap in the face to those 2 girls, and like I keep saying, they owe them apologies. It is what it is. But they know if they come out and say we're sorry, they're going to leave their ass open for a lawsuit. But I'm coming if I was their parents. I'm coming
Yep.
for that eventually. Mm.
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 And it's so hard to be there as somebody who's not associated with the case as a family member, or because the family members are all victims too.
They are. I mean,
but to be, and to get there and stand with Lawyer Lee and stand with Andrea Burkhart and talk to them I got a lot of FaceTime, especially with Lawyer Lee today, and she did, you know, she's just such a smart lawyer. I mean, she's on it.
she is. Like I said, I have followed Lee and watched her for quite a while because of a lot of the things she covers in the Crystal Rogers case is important to me, and I always love to go jump in when she's got something new over there. So I do like her a lot, and I have a lot of respect for her.
Yeah, and I think she has a pretty good unbiased opinion too. Like, she likes to evaluate it very scientifically, very legally.
Yeah, yeah. As a good defense attorney should,
Right.
because
Yes.
these things, no matter, we can lean toward innocence or guilt, but when it comes down to it, this evidence is what matters.
Right.
Beyond a reasonable doubt matters, especially in Florida. Our jury instructions are very specific, and y'all all know Casey Anthony walked in Florida because her defense attorney did his job. And I hate to say it like that, but he did. If you've watched that trial, you know what I'm talking about. Instead of, like people I have people have come at me before, for even bringing the girl's name up. Like, hey, I'm just a regular person here. All I'm stating to you is she had 2 years of nonstop coverage. No gag order, no nothing, none of the things that y'all want to do to preserve cases and the integrities. All that was out there. All of Florida's discovery on display for the world to see for 2 solid years. And she walked because they could not prove beyond the reasonable doubt. And that's just what it was. And and I know I saw a little bit of the Judge Gull's instructions to the jury there in Indiana about that already, right? When they were sworn in, I guess. So they need to start bringing in, that reasonable doubt, and a lot of it to me is because the investigation itself wasn't thorough, which to me leaves some reasonable doubt.
Yes. And that's why we have to send people in there like that, like Lawyer
Mhm.
Lee and Andrea and Bob and the other people, even, and I know you don't like them, but I'm going to say even Murder Sheets, and there are a couple of other people that are on the other side of the guilty versus not guilty. You got to have people from both sides in there reading this thing,
Oh, yeah.
so
I
we get
agree.
a fair and balanced, and it's easy to see when people aren't fair and balanced, and it's easy to tune them out. And
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I do agree. I just the murder sheet I don't care for because they just went down a messy road of stuff. But you leave all that alone. Uh-oh, loud truck, sorry. But yeah, I do that even with the Koberger case. Like Andrea herself has done quite a few videos and lives talking about that case. And so I've reviewed some of it I haven't, but it kind of keeps me balanced when I'm leaning too far one way or the other. I try to stay down the middle as much as I can. We're all going to lean one way or the other, but yeah, you're right. To get a fair and balanced look at it, instead of just an unbiased opinion, I like.
yeah, and we all have bullshit detectors on, so we can
Yeah,
exercise those at our discretion.
exactly.
And some of those people in there are that, but most of the people that I have ran into on a regular basis and gotten to know, even the ones who don't agree with me and I don't agree with them, have been respectful and seemingly interested in getting justice for Abby and Libby too. And some people think that justice for Abby and Libby means Richard Allen's going to be found guilty, and some think that justice for Abby and Libby means he's going to be found not guilty. And that's why there's a jury of 12, and I'm glad that that jury seems to be paying attention and seems to be asking some intelligent questions.
Yeah, Um, it is about, finding because if you want justice for the girls, you have to make sure you convict the right person or persons, and that you don't wrongfully convict somebody else who is just, we need a guy, and here's a good one, you know, a good person to do this to. I don't know. I still don't have an opinion, like 100% on his guilt or innocence, because I still need to see more. But I can see that right now already got issues with their investigation.
There are
And
lots
the
of issues with the
yeah.
investigation, and honestly, I think people on both sides of guilty or innocent should have issues with the investigation.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if you think Richard Allen is guilty, then why the hell didn't the police do a better job of their investigation and find more evidence to tie him to the scene of the crime than a 40
Mhm.
caliber Smith and Wesson? Like,
Exactly. And when you find out they didn't even take the surveillance footage for 5 years, that's huge. To me, it is. That's like, no, that's not doing your due diligence of an investigation. There's a lot of things they did wrong here, and I wondered that 2 weeks ago. Was that the whole reason this thing went crazy? Because they knew their investigation was flawed, and they didn't want that to get out there. It's coming out during court. It's gonna it's coming out, you know?
right.
Um, so
And
it's
McClelland is doing his best to spin it like it wasn't a shoddy investigation.
I don't see how he can say that or try to justify it at this point when they've
Well,
admitted stuff,
it's not it's not an overt statement.
Yeah,
It's little. He's just building his case,
yeah,
little tiny blocks at a time,
yeah,
and it's up to Baldwin and Rosie to poke away at some of those bricks as they can. But he's not coming right out and saying, "Oh, this was a fantastic investigation." He's just
yeah,
building his case little by little.
yeah. I mean, I know they got a lot more to present still, and we'll have to wait and see, but from what that's come out so far, there's a lot of missteps in this investigation for sure.
Yeah, I think tomorrow is supposed to be the lab expert, which I believe is the tool mark expert. And then we'll talk about Holman in a little bit, but
So, Gull's not gonna let Tobin testify.
correct. But
So
it's the state's lab expert.
right. So, the only one we have to rely on now is the state's expert.
Right.
So, Rosie and Baldwin will have to go with that guy to get at what his testimony is gonna be.
Right.
To
And
okay.
when Liggett was on the stand today on cross, Baldwin asked him a couple things about that 40 caliber Smith and Wesson that they found in Rick Allen's house in his keepsake box.
Mhm.
And he kind of pressed him on, was that ever found to be a match to Rick Allen's Sig Sauer 40 caliber handgun? And objection, we have a witness coming in, an expert witness coming in tomorrow to testify to that.
Right.
And Baldwin's like, yes, but this is a police officer on the stand right now who has experience with firearms. Why can't I not ask him his opinion? And Judge Gold said, because I said so.
Of course. She might as well have that stamped across her forehead because I said so.
Sustained. Objection
Let's
sustained.
let's make her some shirts and send them to her. Wear this today, Gull. Jesus Christ.
All right.
Mm.
So after our morning break, a little after 11:30, we reconvene at 11:38. The state calls Delphi investigator Steve Mullen. He received a call from Liggett. Called Dulin. Nobody's spoken to him. We've already been through some of this. Okay, so we get down to Liggett went to, so they searched the Harvest Store video and they did a BMV poll on Rick Allen's BMV records, showed that he has two cars. So they went and looked at the Harvest Store video in September of 2022, 5.5 years after the crime. And I have in my notes, did not see either car. That can't be true. No, I had to have misheard that testimony. They must have seen the Ford Focus. because then
I think
Liggett,
that's what they claim is they saw the Ford Focus.
yes, well, yeah, they do later, but right there
Mhm.
in the beginning of this, for some reason, I said they didn't see their car. That doesn't make sense. So Liggett knew that Rick Allen worked at CVS. So Liggett drives to CVS, gets out of his car, and takes pictures of Rick Allen's car parked backwards in a parking spot at CVS. And then they introduce the photos. The jury sees the photos.
Wait, they got a picture of the car backed into the CPS building?
CVS, where Rick
Oh,
Allen worked.
yeah. They went to his work and took a picture of his
Yes.
car to
Yes, took a
compare.
couple pictures. Yes.
Okay, so again, you got to have an FBI analysis done. Like, this is a huge deal in the Idaho 4 case. Is that the white Elantra on that grainy Linda Lane footage and the 1122 King Road house? It's the neighbor to the house where the kids were killed. So there's a camera right there that can see a white sedan, what appears to be a white sedan coming into the neighborhood. They got the timestamps and everything. But then they had to have the FBI analysis team come out and what year, make, and model. And that car changed a couple times. They changed the year on the car when they came out and said, be on the lookout for this car. It went from what, 2011 to 2015, 2017, it's like all these things. This is a huge deal in that case. And getting the defense attorney there, wanting to know, how do you know what car is on that footage? Because it matters. So you're just going to go take a picture of Rick Allen's car in the parking lot where he works, and then go back to your office and pull up your screenshot of a video surveillance you took 5 years ago. Oh, yeah, look, they're similar. We got it. This is a done deal. I'm so sorry, but it's not a done deal. Where is any official analysis of this video? Oh, that's right. You don't have the video. You just got it, whatever. But still, once they did get the video, you still need an analysis of a car expert to determine if that's the car, as close as you can get it. But that alone, matching a picture to a screenshot you took, is not. That's crazy talk.
And we heard from multiple witnesses. So this is the key point that was made. And it's so interesting that the two witnesses who testified this used the exact same phrase, that the general shape and taillights and bumper of the car in the video is a match with Rick Allen's car. But look at this. He's got these wheels that have spokes on them. And both witnesses said you can, quote unquote, see daylight through them.
Okay, well, the car was parked there that he said he was there.
Well, the what's in dispute is whether or not he drove past the Hoosier Harvest Store
Right.
at whatever it was, 126 or 127 on the
So
13th.
which way? Yeah.
Westbound on County Road 300 North.
Yeah, because if you look at the map and you see where Rick Allen lived, now he said he went to his mom's that day, and then he went back home to grab a jacket, and then went out to the trails. So depending on which way he went, if Hoosier Harvester would have even picked up that car.
Right, and that's a bone of contention in the testimony today too, because he was asked in that in the second investigation, the first interview, the non-formal interview where he was not under arrest and he was free to leave at any time. He was interviewed multiple times by Holman, and he was asked which way he went to get there. And he just kept being pushed on that and pushed on that and pushed on that. And he at first said, well, I definitely would have come through the city. I definitely would have come around, the northbound on County Road 300 and come around the loop to the CPS store. And or the CPS building, the old CPS building. But
Yeah.
the more he was pushed on it, the more he kind of wavered. And was like, in the end, he's like, I don't know. According to the testimony today, and that's not a direct quote from any witness. That's kind of like a summary. Yeah, I don't know. And McClellan used that like, oh, so you came westbound on 300 North. So this video from a Hoosier Harvest Store is definitely you. And it's not Rick Allen's not testifying; it's the people who interviewed him, right? So obviously, they're gonna say, "Yeah, that's my interpretation of what he said to me."
Yeah. Okay, so even if he did go away or come up that way where he had to go past the Hoosier Harvester to go park, he still said he was there. And the time you see the car, what time does this car allegedly pass the building? I know that I saw the time somewhere today.
1:27 p.m.
1:27.
Yes.
So yes, that would make sense since he said he got there at 1:30.
Well,
So
you're making the state's case right now.
yeah, but still, there were a lot. Betsy Blair was there. Sarah was there. A lot of folks were there. And so if you say you're there and your car is seen there, well, that's not out of the ordinary then. Now, if I'm the defense attorney. So he told you he was there. Of course you see his car. But what time did that car leave? For sure. It would needs to be determined. What time Rick Allen actually left. Because the man's done told everybody he was there. I know he was there. He knows he was there. Doesn't mean he did anything wrong. But I need to know when you left. Something's got to tell me what time you left there for sure at some point. And I guess he's not, depending on which way he went when he left. Now, if he was going to go straight home, he should have come out of that CPS and took a right road past the Hoosier.
Left. Nope.
You can get to his house the other way as well.
No, that is the more direct route, is to go the other way. That county road goes underneath the Hoosier Heartland and goes down and connects to East Main Street, and then you're right in town.
Right, and not far from Rick Allen's house.
Correct.
So depending on which way he left when he pulled out of the CPS building, the car's going to be seen leaving or it's not. But still determine what time the man left, And now that I know your video was left sitting somewhere for 5 years before you ever went back and got it, I got issues now with your video. Kind of like giving the phone back to the family, Libby's phone back to the family, allegedly. Because why would there be a picture of her own funeral on her phone? So from what we're understanding, once they did some extractions on that phone, at some point it was given back to the family. And then they took the phone back from the family to do more updated extractions. I got a problem with that too. So the fact that the camera sees the man's car to me it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, it matters, but it don't. You know what I mean? What matters is what time he left there. Now we've established, yes, he can be seen at 1:27. He said he got there at 1:30. But what time did he leave? That's the part that matters.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, you got a map pulled up there. Okay, good.
Yes. So here's the Hoosier Harvest Store right in the middle.
Uh-huh.
And here's County Road 300 North. And they claim, so I have this showing Kelsey's car is seen on camera at 1:47. It's actually 1:49. I did not hear that testimony correctly. I'm going to have to fix that. But 2 minutes difference, not a huge deal. That's also the same camera where his car is supposedly seen 20 minutes before that at 1:27.
Right.
So passing there, according to the state, comes up here and backs into where the old CPS building was.
Yeah. And it's interesting that he didn't park down there at the Mirrors parking. I know that it was stated that sometimes if the trail gets busy or full, people would park along that area there. Like there's not like a parking lot per se, but like a little small parking area.
Right here?
Okay. Yeah. Like the
Right
Mirrors
here.
entrance.
And that's actually where Kelsey said she dropped them off. So she was asked on the stand, did you do a U-turn of any kind? And she said, or did you pull in and then did you back out? And she said, no, I just kind of pulled off to the side and then I continued in the same direction. So she comes in here from West 300 North. She kind of does a little dipsy-do. There's nobody else there, so she can kind of pull off to the side. She drops off Abby and Libby around 1:45, maybe 147-ish, because 2 minutes later at 149, her car is seen here on the Hoosier Harvester camera. So, but there have been people that have testified that they've either parked here or they've seen cars parked here in the Mears entrance across from the Mears farm.
And somewhere today I had saw on Twitter, I think I maybe on my computer saved, or Becky Patty had been talking about that area, and that there was people would park over there at the Mears, like right across. So when you drop the girls off, to the left is the trail. You enter the trail that way. But right there at the Mears house, the old house, people would park right there sometimes, occasionally. But if you're not comfortable parking there, it's not a big deal to go down the street and park and then walk down there. So I don't have a problem with the fact that he parked down there, at the CPS building. That might have been the normal place he went to park if he frequented, when he went to the trails.
Right. And from there, so there's this little trail from that parking lot directly over to the Freedom Bridge.
Right.
Like you can walk there without ever having to get on the road. But when you leave there, so what got us into this is when he leaves there, which way does he go? So if you come up here off screen on the north side of it and then come back down around here, then that's East Main Street, Delphi right there, basically. Oh,
yeah.
That's East Main Street, Delphi. So that's the way he would have gone to go home. And traditionally, typically, the way, and he told this to Holman, I think it was Holman. It was a Holman or Mullins. Gosh,
I think it was Mullen.
Yeah,
I think it was Mullen.
Mullen interviewed him, and I think was the one that was pushing him on, could you have gone a different way? Could you have possibly gone a different way? Did you go a different way? Can you think of another way you may have gone on other days? Like pushing him in that interview to admit that he might have gone another way.
There's only two ways to go, left or right, when you come out of the CPS building.
Well, getting there, though. He's talking about getting there, though.
Oh, yeah, on the way there.
Supposedly, like way off over here to the right, and Mullen actually stood off like 3 feet to the right of the big screen where they had a map similar to this pulled up. And you come up here, and then you come down here, and it's like a country route to get there. So
so a few weeks ago, well, a week or so ago, we reviewed, Julie Melvin did a drive, and we were reviewing where she passed the Mears property there to kind of get the gist of what we were, to get everybody a rundown on the location there. And I think they were playing it again in somebody's stream today, and she actually she drove that route you just showed, the country route, the long way route, and back into the area. So you don't mind if you're going to go out there and do something nefarious. Well, I don't know how many cameras are in town. You know what I mean? If you're thinking, am I going to be seen on cameras all over town or not? But would you go away where you wouldn't be seen, not realizing there was a camera at the Harvest store? So if you did go the long way and come up the way we're thinking, and he was seen on the camera as he passed going to CPS, but then he leaves and goes left when he goes home, and he goes the other way, the short way, which means he wouldn't be seen on the Harvester store camera leaving. Right. So I wonder if wasn't Mullen asked about any of the cameras in town? Did they spot his car?
Not today. He wasn't. No.
I wonder how many, because it's such a small town, how many businesses really had cameras trained on parking lots. You know what I mean? A lot of times they're like in the building and on their lobbies or their storefronts or whatever. Not everybody has, and sometimes these cameras don't even work that are outside buildings, but were there any cameras in town? Like what? I don't know. It's such a small town. I'm going to go collect anybody's footage I can get my hands on.
Right.
But maybe they didn't think about that. They didn't even think about to take the surveillance footage from the damn store that mattered right there on your damn street, right across from where your ground zero happened. You didn't take that one, so I don't have much faith they went into town asking around about cameras.
Right.
It would be interesting to find out if Rick's car had any kind of information on it that could pertain as to where, like GPS location of the car and things of that nature. Like a lot of these cars have that capability now. It would be interesting to find out more about that, but I haven't heard anything about that at all. So I don't know.
Do we know kind of about where Rick Allen's address? Oh, Whiteman. It was somewhere on Whiteman Drive, right?
It was a while. I have the actual address, but not out here. I'm outside. It was. Let me go. I gotta walk inside anyway. I'll look and see what my notes say. Hang on, I might have it in this notebook. But it was on Whiteman Drive. I know what the house looks like. I've seen it 1,000 times. It is a tannish brick house. I believe it's on the left-hand side of the road. Where would I have that written down at? It's probably in my other notes. But so Whiteman Drive is not far off Main Street, I don't believe. I'm going to mute out a second while I walk inside. I'll be right back.
Let's just take a look for Whiteman Street. Whiteman Drive.
I've got a copy of the search warrant somewhere, I think, on my computer, and I know the address is in there too. And the PCA has the address. And a lot of the documents have it as well. I just don't know where I gotta go look for them.
All right, let's see if we can find this. So, Whiteman Drive is out off of West 200 North. That is kind of out in the country a little bit. South of Delphi.
Computer. Okay.
So I could see where it wouldn't be unreasonable to take the country road that way.
Yeah, because I've looked at that map so many times and looked at the routes that you could go to and from the bridge to get there from his home. And yeah.
It does seem if he's going to go to the Monon High Bridge Trail, and that shows up here on the map, that going through town would be the more efficient route than going, because you got to go all the way over here to go around to get there out in the country.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, here it is. Let's see. I mean, he did say he went to his mom's, and then when he came back, grabbed the jacket. Maybe he went the long way just to kill some time to get. I don't know. You know, why you would go that way versus the other direction.
Well, if he's coming down from Peru, he's on the Hoosier Heartland, so he goes by the Freedom Bridge. He actually has to drive under the Freedom Bridge to get to the exit by his house. So this is the exit by his house. So drives past where he wants to go because he wants to go get another jacket.
Yeah. Well, I wonder why did he go get a different jacket or just didn't take one to his mom's that day because it was a warmer day, and then he went to go get one in case it turned cooler as he was out walking the bridge and looking at stock tickers. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know, the fact that the car was seen there, wait. His cell phone did not list an IMEI, but did have the following. I was looking at the search for probable cause.
So Steve Mullen testifies that he saw Richard Allen's car on the Hoosier Harvest Store video. Baldwin objects to it being a match to Richard Allen's car. it's overruled. So it's a subjective opinion that the video that Mullen says he saw matched Richard Allen's car. Baldwin objects. It's overruled. So it's allowed to go into evidence that Mullen thinks that the car in the video is a match to Richard Allen's car. And then we get State Exhibits 233 to 242, which is a frame by frame of the video of that car, the black Ford Focus, traveling east to west on County Road 300 North. So that's there's 300 North is right there. This is the Hoosier Harvest Store is now called the Delphi U Store, which makes me think that it's like a self-storage unit, and it looks a lot like a self-storage place. People have said it has to do with agriculture, like farm implements or something, and it
used to, when it was the Harvester, that's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, in the past.
Storage units. Whoever bought that just turned it into storage units.
I guess so. I didn't realize that had happened, but yeah.
Okay, so West 300 North. So he's traveling this way, and he's seen on video at 127. Well, a black Ford Focus is seen on video at 127. And they show us, so 233 to 242, that's 9 still shots of the video frame. We don't ever see any video. And then there's a close-up of one of the vehicles in the frame.
So even if they went and obtained the video 5 years later, they didn't show it in court?
Nope. Nope, they didn't. They didn't show the recorded video of his interview. And you would think that the defense could show it if they wanted to, but maybe there's a reason they didn't want to show that either. I mean, the good with the bad might outweigh each other in that, showing that video, the recorded interview, because the one with Mullen, he gets pissed off and he walks out. So that may not play well with the jury.
Well, that's what Mullen said, right? That Rick Allen got mad and walked out.
Yes.
Well, maybe he didn't. I mean, there could have been. Look, first of all, where's my lawyer? You're asking me a bunch of crazy questions now. So I mean, what was the context? Like, I don't know. So why did he say he got mad and walked out? Because he was being pressed and questioned, or just didn't like the line of questioning?
We'll actually get to that. We'll actually get to that. Let's finish this about the Hoosier Harvest Store video. So it looked like he was pointing on the screen on the map that this Hoosier Harvest Store video, and we'll learn in later testimony that the camera was mounted like on the southwest corner of the building. So it's going to have, if it has like a 90-degree span or 110-degree span, it's going to show cars all the way over here. And it kind of sounded like he pointed to it following the black Ford Focus all the way around the curve before it loses it. But I'm sitting at a bad angle to the monitor, so I can't tell exactly where he pointed, but I'm pretty sure he pointed like up towards the top of that curve where they lost track of it. They can't see the plate. They can't see the VIN. They can't see the driver. They're basing the match to Richard Allen's vehicle on quote unquote general shape and appearance, taillights, bumper, and rims with spokes that you can see daylight through. This is Mullen's testimony. So Mullen testifies that the time on the video matches the Dulin interview. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, because Rick Allen told Dulin that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30, and the time on the video is 1:27. So Mullen testifies that was a match in his mind. So because of that, they contact Richard Allen. They go to his house. They knock on his door. He answers. They ask if he's willing to come down for an interview voluntarily. He's not under arrest. He's not being detained. He doesn't have to do it. He agrees to get in Mullins' 2014 Buick. Why he was specific with that on the stand, I don't know. Because they asked, well, was it a police car that you transported him in? Was he in handcuffs? Was it anything like that? No, it was my 2014 Buick. I've got a 2014 Buick. Well, is that a police vehicle? Is it marked? No, it's unmarked. It's not associated with law enforcement, blah, blah, blah. So I took him to the police station, and Mullen says he was Mirandized before the interview started. Rick Allen visibly shakes his head no again. So that was an interesting reaction.
Yeah.
So Rick, but it doesn't matter. So I actually discussed this with lawyer Lee, and I'm like, if you're not being detained and you're free to leave at any time and you're not under arrest, then you don't have to be Mirandized, right? And she said that's correct. So
yeah, normally if you're just being questioned, you're not. I mean, you're arrested, you are, right?
Arrested, detained, not free to leave. Those three things are synonymous with you better be Mirandized, or anything you say after that point may be fruit of the poison tree and may not be admissible in court. But
yeah,
he wasn't any of those things. He was free to leave. He wasn't arrested. He wasn't detained. So they started interviewing him. So that's just an interesting point where Rick Allen would disagree that he was Mirandized, and Mullen would make a point of saying he wasn't arrested, he wasn't detained, he was free to leave, but we Mirandized him anyway. That's what does it matter?
Right. You're making up stuff as you go along there, dude.
I don't know. So Rick Allen testified in this interview that he had gone to his mother's house that day on February 13th. She lives in Miami County, somewhere around Peru, which is an interesting connection to Keegan Kline for all you conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think a lot of people know. Some folks aren't aware of that. That's where his mother, Rick Allen's mother, lived over there.
Well, Rick actually lived up there too.
Yeah, at some point.
Yes, and he was in a pool league with Tony Kline. Anyway, another story, another rabbit hole. We don't need to go back there. He went to his mother's house, got back around 11 a.m. He went to his house to get another jacket. And then, so this is his testimony in the interview on October 13th of 2022. He told Mullen that he arrived at the trails around noon. So that's an hour and a half different than what he told Dulin. He arrived at 12 and left around 1. He was there for about an hour. He went from the trailhead to the Monon High Bridge. He was looking at his stock ticker, so he wasn't really paying attention to any other people on the trail. Then he actually went out on the Monon High Bridge to the first platform, and he was standing there looking at fish on the bridge. He did remember encountering 3 girls at the Freedom Bridge when he was first taking off from the Freedom Bridge. So that's over here. So he's saying that he parked over here. Let me turn on the aerial. So this is where the old CPS building was. He parked over here. He apparently went down this back sidewalk or trail, whatever it is, over to the Freedom Bridge. And somewhere around here, he encountered 3 girls. And we know that those girls took a picture around that same time, 126-ish. 126, I think, was the picture on the bench around the Freedom Bridge. So if that picture was at 126, and then they said they encountered a man shortly after that, and we don't know what shortly after that is, there was a picture of a black Ford Focus over here at 127, 1 minute after that picture was taken over here. So the timeline is becoming really critical, because if it takes him another, say, 2 minutes to drive up here to the CPS building, backs it in, and then he starts walking this way. So it's at least another 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes before he gets down here to the Hoosier or to the Freedom Bridge. So that's 127 plus 3 plus 10. That's like 140-ish that he winds up somewhere around here when he said he saw 3 girls around 140. So what were they doing in that 13, 14 minutes after they took the picture before they saw him? Like, where were they parked? Were they parked over here? Did they just like sit around on the Freedom Bridge, like in the bench area for 15 minutes after that picture? We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know because all of this is under a gag order and we can't see any of the exhibits unless you're in court and you happen to have a good view when they're on the monitor and when they're not on the monitor. And it's like, I'd say it's like, in my experience to date, it's been like 2/3. Like 2/3 of the exhibits have been handouts to the jury and handouts to the witness, and maybe 1/3 of it has been broadcast on the monitor.
So when Mullen was testifying, did Baldwin get up after when the court resumed, like at 1:30-ish? Did he ask Mullen, "Was you lied to the jury?"
Yes, that was the first thing he said. Like, he jumped out of his seat. Like, I was waiting. So here are my notes. The media gets in at 1:20. The public gets in at 1:22. At 1:30, we all rise. Judge Cole comes in. At 1:33, all rise. The jury enters. Notice I said 1:33. At 1:33, so within a minute, Baldwin jumps up and he goes, "Right before lunch, you lied to this jury, didn't you? You were so interested in conveying your story," and that's not the way he put it. This is my paraphrasing. "You were so interested in your narrative that you lied to this jury, didn't you?" And of course, Mullen is like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. But yeah, that
So
was immediately after lunch. Like, we didn't even have time to breathe, and he's like, "You lied to this jury, didn't you?"
So it says from what they was reporting here, it said, "You lied to this jury before lunch. You lied to this jury." And Mullen responded, "Is there a question?" And Baldwin handed him a copy of the October 13th, 2022 interview with Rick Allen. Baldwin asked Mullen to point out exactly where Allen said he may have gone westbound on 300 North to get to the trails. Mullen responds that Allen said he was traveling in a direction that seemed like it could have been westbound. Like, what? You seemed okay. Baldwin asked Mullen if he asked Allen if he went to the trails in a different way. And then Baldwin says this is because they are desperate for Rick to be going west. Oh, he said that in court. Prosecutor McClellan objects, and it was objects over and over. Baldwin then says, "Words matter on the stand, correct? Especially those that impact the timeline. For your theory to work, Allen's car had to be at the CPS between 1:30 and 4:30. And the jury asked Mullen, "Were you in an interview with Mr. Allen where he stated he didn't remember which way he took the trail?" And he responded, "Yes."
Yeah, you just jumped through like 4 of my pages. So
like, they need to get it. I mean, if you're interviewing a main suspect, you need to get everything they say down pat, right?
right.
Not I think, I don't recall, and all this weird stuff. That's not going to fly when you're trying to present rock solid evidence.
Right. And I think the key point is that he was trying to catch him in one of those where Mullen definitively declared, "Rick Allen said to me that he might have been going westbound on 300 North." And Baldwin's like, "He never said to you that he might have been going westbound on 300 North, did he?" And he hands him this transcript, and it's several pages of transcript. And Mullen is like looking through it. We're all kind of like, "Okay, dude, are you going to find it or you're not? Are you going to admit that you can't find it?" And the jury's like really studiously watching him. And then he finds something that's similar to that, but is not that exact phrase. So he says, oh, I found this right here on this page. Rick says he went by the mirror's entrance. And Baldwin says, that's not the question I asked you, is it? I said, show me where Rick Allen said that he may have gone westbound on County Road 300 North. So Mullen starts going back through this dozens and dozens of pages long transcript, and it's taking minutes and minutes and minutes. And now the jury's starting to get bored. They're starting to look around. They're starting to be like, well, is he going to find it, or is he not going to admit it? And then he does find something that is more similar to it. On page 45, Mullen says, Rick Allen says he went past the high bridge and saw a couple of cars parked there. But that still isn't, I might have gone westbound that day.
Right.
He says, I might have gone that way. He doesn't say that way west, that way east. He just says, I might have gone that way. So, but to get past that entrance, which is, but what is high bridge? What is the high bridge entrance? Is that the mirror's entrance? He doesn't say mirror's entrance. Almost everybody knows that as the mirror's entrance. He doesn't say that. He says high bridge entrance.
So if I'm the defense attorney, my client says he goes out there from time to time, which way do you normally travel there when you leave your home? And was this day any different? So within the first early days of being interviewed, he probably knew exactly which way he went because he had just done it a couple days before that. 5 years later, well, I don't know, man. Did I go that way or did I go the other way? Because there's a couple ways I go. You know what I mean? Depending on where I'm at. There could have been 5 years is 5 years. Do you remember exactly what you were doing 5 years on a certain day? I mean, I might recall specifically, like the day the girls were reported missing. I remember being in my house cleaning with the news on, and I turned to watch the news when I heard these 2 girls were missing. But everything else on that day, I can't tell you what all went down. So I understand he wasn't a suspect in the very beginning when Dulin interviewed him. But now I'm going to ask Rick Allen, well, when you normally traveled from your home to the bridge, which way would you normally go? At this point, it doesn't matter which way he went to get there because you see his car apparently going there. So we kind of know which way he went to get there. We got that on camera if that's his car. But it's which route he took going home really doesn't matter either because the crimes weren't committed at his home. But that matters what time you left the area. You know, if cameras can see you at that point. Like they're kind of making a big deal about nothing in some ways, in my opinion, as to which way you drove out of there.
Right. Like, I don't quite understand why the defense is fighting so hard on whether or not Rick Allen's car was caught on that camera and if he was going westbound. Maybe because it's the timeline, because I believe they're going to challenge the timeline. So Rick Allen's car being caught on camera at the Hoosier Harvest Store at 1:27. And is that 1:27 actual time? Is that 1:27 adjusted time? Is that 1:27 camera time? Do we know for sure?
Right.
Because there's a 54-minute difference in there. And what times are being reported to us? What times are being told to the jury? And to my knowledge, the jury hasn't even been told yet that there's a 54-minute difference between actual time and Hoosier Harvest Store camera time. But I haven't been here the whole time, so I don't know.
Yeah, because even like in certain cases, the cameras, the timestamp's not correct. You know what I mean? Because the date's wrong or the time is incorrect on the camera. Hell, we even see that in the Soto case with one of the interviews being conducted where the time on the camera is not correct. There was something wrong with it, but they have that issue over in Idaho as well. So all those things matter. All the more reason to take that video surveillance and what are the timestamps on there? Because we're trying to establish if this guy was there during the time.
Right. Well, here's the confusing thing about that. We know for a fact that the FBI has determined that the Hoosier Harvest Store camera was off by something like 54 minutes.
Okay.
But we don't know when these expert witnesses or these witnesses are being called to testify about these videos, if they're testifying to the time that they saw on the video or to the adjusted time based on knowing how far off the timestamp is on the video. We don't know that. And it just leads to more confusion in this whole thing.
Okay, because we know what time Kelsey claimed she dropped the girls off. Not claimed, but what time she dropped them off. And then that camera sees her car. That camera also sees Betsy Blair's car coming, it also will see Sarah Carball drive past it as well. She says she drove right past it. So all of those vehicles can be seen on there. But at the time, did you know those vehicles belong to those people? Like, oh, these are my witnesses, and this is the sister to one of our victims, and all these things. What time were those cars seen in that timestamp on that video? It's still they're going to have a hard time establishing what time this man left that area. It sounds like, unless there's cameras in town that can see that car.
Right. So they're, as far as the prosecution goes, they're just establishing what time he was there and how that fits with the timeline of what witnesses saw somebody, some man, some unknown male in the area of the Monon High Bridge trails, whether it was by the Freedom Bridge, whether it was on the Monon High Bridge, wherever it was. Several witnesses saw an unknown male in the area that day. And that I'm going to get to that like specifically in a little bit. Like, I don't understand why the defense didn't probe that a little more. But they go back and forth with this transcript a little bit more from the interview, which it was a recorded interview. And Baldwin says, you could have shown that interview here today, couldn't have you? And Nick McClelland objects, and she sustains, so we don't hear any more about that. Baldwin, you asked Richard which way he would have gone. Yes. And Richard Allen indicated that he would have gone the loop to 300 East northbound. McClelland stands up, says, Judge, can we approach? She says yes. They go off to the side. They come back from their little sidebar, which is funny because this is a really, really, really sidebar. Like most sidebars, the attorneys approach the judge, like right in the bench. The judge just sits in their chair. They have a little discussion. But in Judge Gold's court, she gets up out of her chair. She goes off to her right, our left, all the way to the corner to have this little discussion between the attorneys. And they have a white sound machine that's pointed directly towards the gallery, so we can't hear what they're saying. And they play white noise for that whole time they're having a sidebar.
See, I thought you was joking when you said that, because I'm like, I got my white noise when I'm sleeping, right? I can't hear a thing. I don't want to hear a thing when I'm trying to sleep. But yeah, I thought that was odd that Gold, she's like super secretive.
Yes.
I've seen sidebars happen all the time, and they just, like you said, like you described, they just walk up to the bench and they talk amongst themselves.
Right. They turn off the microphones, so
we can't turn off the mic. Right. Yeah. No, she's like, no, let me get down. Let me walk over here and turn on the white noise, and y'all be whispering.
Right. So they come back from the sidebar, and Baldwin says, same question. Richard Allen indicated he would have gone the loop. And Mullen says he said that was a possible route. Yes. And then Baldwin says, please read lines 15 to 18 of the transcript. And then he's done reading them. He looks up. Baldwin says, Richard Allen said he took the round, and I missed this word, round or round route or something, which would have been the loop. Objection. FOQ. What is an FOQ objection?
FOQ? Is that your notes?
Yes, my note says objection FOQ.
Well, I don't know. You got to send me a key of what you're going to use.
Facts. Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to figure that out.
Facts of question, facts of, I don't know if you,
I don't know.
all right, when you get your
That's gonna
abbreviations,
keep me, yeah, that's gonna keep me up tonight.
I
Figure out
I need a cheat sheet to your abbreviations, man.
what an FOQ objection is. But anyway, the objection is
Fact, not
sustained.
fiction.
Right. Um, so then Baldwin starts reading an actual interview question from the transcript where Mullen asked Richard Allen, "Was there ever a time when you might have gone to the park another way?" Mullen, "Yes, I asked that." Baldwin, "You attempted to ask him a second time if he drove west on 300 North." Rick said, we would have driven. So that day, speaking about February 13, 2017, we would have driven through town. And you cut him off mid-sentence. McClellan, objection. He's reading from the transcript, trying to enter the transcript into record. The objection is sustained. And then Baldwin says, Rick Allen said he may have driven his other car. Yes, but he changed his mind by the end of his interview. Is that your interpretation? Yes. So Rick Allen didn't say, yes, I definitely drove that car that day. That was just Mullen's interpretation of the interview results, that's what Rick Allen had arrived at by the end of the interview.
So didn't he tell, then when he, all right, well, when Dulin interviewed him, he didn't find out what kind of car Rick was driving that day?
Nope.
Didn't think that was important either, huh?
Nope.
All right, so you're looking at the phone numbers that pinged in the area, and you're looking at people that you need to talk to, but you don't think to find out what kind of vehicle they're driving as well as what they were wearing that day. Okay. Well, that's his training, so.
Then Baldwin, is it your theory that Rick Allen's car was at the CPS building between 1:30 and 4? Yes. Does this Richard Allen's car look like a 1960 Comet? Objection. Facts, not an evidence. We go to a sidebar. Come back. Baldwin says, were you in charge of collecting evidence? So they got away from the comment. She didn't allow the comment question in. Were you in charge of collecting evidence? Objection, outside the scope of direct. Sustained.
What? That don't make any sense. I mean, that's like a...
Yes. Good.
That seems like a pretty simple question to ask and answer.
Right. Were you in charge of collecting evidence? Objection, that's outside the scope of direct examination. Sustained.
How is that outside the scope, though? I mean,
I don't know.
We need to know if you were collecting evidence or not.
So then Baldwin's
apparently
done.
Not. You left your video for 5 years.
Right. No further questions. McClellan gets some redirect. He asks something about what Mullen told Nick. So there was some communication between Mullen, investigator Mullen, and Nick McClellan, prosecutor at that time, back in 2017. And McClellan just asked, what you told me at that time, were those direct quotes from Richard Allen? Not necessarily. I don't know what bearing that has on the case. I don't know. Maybe something he'll bring up later. But they're talking about whether what Rick told him and what he wrote in his report are direct quotes or not. Then the jury actually has some questions, some really smart questions. Were you in an interview? So this is to Investigator Mullins. Were you in an interview where Richard Allen said he didn't remember which way he went? Yes. That's a really good question.
Yeah, like I said, they appear to have some really good questions to follow up with.
Were you in an interview where Richard Allen said he didn't remember which way he went? Yes. That kind of nails it right there.
Yeah.
Did you investigate How many black Ford Focuses are in the Carroll County area? Another
Ooh,
excellent question. No, I did not.
they
And
must have watched some of the Idaho case right there. We got 21,000 Elantras. So how many Ford Focuses we got in
right,
that area?
right. And I'm pretty sure that Baldwin asked him, and I didn't write it down, but I heard Bob talking about it. Are those spoked wheels that are on that car that shows up in the video mass produced by Ford? Yes, they are. Those are mass produced spoked wheels. Those are not like some special wheels
So
that
they
we
would have been on a number of cars, or a
yes,
number of those cars that year. Okay. So
yes.
it wasn't like a special edition rim you can
No,
go get and put on there, and it's going to a unique identifier.
no. So
Mm.
did you check the Who is Your Harvestor video for Richard Allen's other car? Yes, we did. The Nick says, did you see it on the video? No, we didn't. So we had two cars and they didn't see his other car in the video.
So
And
they
then
just see the Ford Focus.
yes. And then at 2:07, the state calls Tony Liggett. This is going to take a while. I need to take a quick break. What are we going to do while I take a quick break?
I got questions for Liggett.
Yes, we all have good questions for Liggett.
I haven't heard much of what his testimony was about. I did find a snippet on Twitter that I'm interested in talking about too. So yeah.
Do you want to do
I
that?
need, yeah. Well, I gotta take a break to the bathroom too. But I was just so are they going to be questioning him about what he hears on the bridge guy video?
Well, yes. Yep.
Okay.
100%. That's like some of the most shocking testimony of the day.
Wow. Okay, you want to take 5 minutes? You need a moment?
I do, but let's at least find something interesting to play. Where was that one Dulin video that you sent me?
It's long. Like that's a documentary type deal. But it's in the Discord. The Reckoning in Carroll County, that
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yes.
We don't
That
have
is
time for that
actually
whole thing.
it's lengthy. Because it's an entire story. Jesse, it's about a resident who lived there and was done really, really wrong by the county, Carroll County. It's long, so it's not something you can just throw up and watch for 5 minutes, and we're going to be like, oh wow, it's going to be like it's a whole thing. But we need to share the link out because it isn't. It's nothing to do with this case, but it has to do with Dan Dulin and what he was capable of doing. Not being completely honest to get search warrants and different things of that nature. And how what they're willing to do to harass somebody, as far as a civilian goes. It's crazy, but I can kind of give you guys the rundown. So, what was Jesse's last name? And I hate that I don't remember it because this poor guy. Jesse's no longer with us. He unalived himself after all this was over with because literally he had served our country. He bought a home. Him and his friends were over there one evening playing paintball. And they had their paintball guns out and they're shooting each other and they're popping fireworks off and there's music in the garage blasting and they're all outside just having a good old time. Authorities show up. It goes sideways real fast. And Dan Dulin falsified some information to make Jesse look bad. Jesse ended up losing everything he owned in the end because of what they did to him and all the things that came out during that investigation. Now, like I said, there was a really long, lengthy thing to watch, and it's hard to explain the whole thing. Snyder, thank you, All Eyes. You've seen it, I'm sure. So it was Jesse Snyder. You guys can also Google that as well. But The Reckoning in Carroll County, if you do a quick YouTube search, you will find it. I believe R&M Productions posted a link out again today on that on her channel. So it's easy to find. Like I said, it's called Reckoning in Carroll County. So when you get a chance, look that up and watch it, because you'll be very interested in what you see. And it just kind of gives us a little background on this guy and what all happened in that case that was really not good. And then you look at what goes on here and what we're seeing, and it's kind of the same thing. It could be, you know.
All right, so I want to play the Indiana State Police press conference 2 years after stream 6 years ago. Oh, 1 year since the murders of Abby and Libby, and just kind of hear these things that that law enforcement is putting out there and comparing that to what we're hearing at trial. So
Yeah, because that's always a good thing to do. You go ahead and let that roll, and while you're doing that, I'm going to run to the restroom and be right back, and you can take your little break for a second.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Everybody ready? Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for coming today. Today we're going to talk about the Abby Libby case. Some of the people standing behind me is Superintendent Doug Carter with the Indiana State Police. You got Detective Deputy Sheriff Kevin Hammond over there. You got Sheriff Tobe Lesby with the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. On this side, FBI Special Agent Mike Peasley, and then First Sergeant Jerry Holman. They're going to discuss today the things that have been going on over the last year with this case. Superintendent Carter will do most of the talking, and at this time, I'll turn over the podium to him. Thank you.
And I found you guys, and then she's been stoked on dinner time and breakfast time ever since.
You like the farmer's dog? We're on to something here. We found something.
I just knew in that moment, like, you know what? I'm going to do this.
I wish I would have known about the farmer's dog a lot sooner.
I wouldn't hesitate, and honestly, I wish I found it sooner than I did.
If you're thinking about it, you should do it.
All I could think of is, why didn't I see this sooner?
Well, first of all, welcome. I didn't really know what to expect when I stood on this trail just a little bit ago, over the course of the last 15 minutes, but it's a very uncomfortable feeling. We're a year today. I would be remiss to not talk about the people that have made this whole for the first year without an arrest. We talked about Sheriff Linsonby, who stands behind me to the left, and Kevin Hammond, Mike Peasley with the FBI, Jerry Holman over my right shoulder, Steve Buckley, the new prosecutor, Nick McClelland, here in Carroll County. What I've seen over this course of the last years are memories and times and comments and things that will stand with me and live with me for the rest of my life. The very best of humanity in the very worst of times. I was able to see from afar this community in Carroll County and the city of Delphi come together and support not only law enforcement, the people that were here that have given so much of their lives to this case, but also to the families. And I just wanted to say I am forever humbled. I don't know what you expected today, but I came to plead and implore you to keep this out front and center. I said before, and I'm confident I'll say again, I hope that one day when we all meet Abby and Libby, that they tell us you did well. That's my hope. We cannot allow evil to prevail. Our world is completely out of balance, and we cannot allow that to prevail. I've said all along that we, as an agency, will be here as long as I'm breathing and as long as Governor Holcomb allows me to continue to stay in the position that I hold. I have the opportunity to brief him regularly. This isn't about how many hours we spend. It's not about how much it costs. It's about every single asset that the ISP has, we will give to this sheriff, this community, and to each and every one of you, because I refuse to accept evil as a standard bearer in American society, not here. People have oftentimes asked me, why is this so personal to you? It's personal to me because those two young girls were everybody's daughter in this beautiful place that represents the very best of humanity. And look what happened. SP has, we will give to this sheriff, this. We cannot allow evil to prevail.
Okay, I had to back it up for this.
Our world is completely out of balance, and we cannot allow that to prevail.
Coming up.
I've said all along that we, as an agency, will be here as long as I'm breathing and as long as Governor Holcomb allows me to continue to stay in the position that I hold. I have the opportunity to brief him regularly.
Coming up.
This isn't about how many hours we spend. It's not about how much it costs. It's about every single asset that the ISP has.
Every single asset that the ISP has. Every single video recorder that lost footage.
Yeah. So all your assets made an ass out of y'all, Doug. I mean, and the fact they always kept saying, you know, we're almost there. We can't wait to tell you what all we know one day. Like y'all didn't know nothing apparently until Kathy S. found your tip. So all these times they came out with these press conferences, you know, our investigation this, our investigation that. You guys just wait, you'll see. We're almost none of it. You didn't know nothing for years. You knew nothing.
We are one tip away. We're one
Yeah.
email away. Always one tip away, one email away.
You really were. It was sitting in a box in a corner the whole time, apparently.
Yeah,
but you didn't know.
Magically materialized in the middle of an election for a sheriff.
Exactly. And then you got all these statements coming out now from Mullen, Dulin, and their I don't knows and I don't recalls and all these things. And well, it's just not adding up at this point. You know, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but are y'all just making that up? You know, or you're not showing me enough proof yet of anything. And it all comes down to it. The burden of proof's on the state. And we know that. And when we get to trial, it's the time to prove it. So now I gave you all the opportunity. Did we throw shade at you somewhat during this time period? Yeah, we did. Because we were hearing things, but now prove it. And right now they haven't got there yet. Not with me anyway. They've got some circumstantial stuff. But the same circumstantial stuff that Rick Allen himself said. Yes, I was there wearing this. Other than that, they haven't shown me he did anything yet. So It's going to be really interesting to see the testimony tomorrow about the ballistics test.
Right. And it's funny because on Cross, well, we'll get to Liggett's Cross in a little bit. I want to jump ahead, but he's basically asked about that very thing, that if you don't have that Smith & Wesson tied to Richard Allen's gun, what do you have? And I'll tell you what the answer to that is when we get to Cross. But right now we're on direct because we're just calling Sheriff Tony Liggett to the stand. He has 23 years of law enforcement experience. In 2017, he was a detective. And come to find out later, he didn't say this when he was asked. He was second in command to Tobe Lesenby in the Carroll County Sheriff's Office.
Yes.
He called himself the number 2. I won't go there.
Yeah, I will. Oh my
Let's get
gosh.
that guy's face off of here. Stop that. All right. Okay, so talks about how he got the tip from Kathy Shank. Why was it important? Well, because we had been looking for the guy that ran into the girls, because we believed that that guy that ran into the girls was Bridge Guy. And we know that the young ladies Wilbur and Voorhees passed a male on the trails. So the Interstates Exhibit 211. This is the last picture that the girls took at the bench at the Freedom Bridge at 1:26 p.m. And shortly after that, they passed a man. Shortly thereafter is what I have. What is shortly thereafter? Is that 1 minute? Is that 5 minutes? Is that 15 minutes? Because to fit the Hoosier Harvester video, it's got to be something like 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, States Exhibit 212 is Betsy Blair Fitbit data. The Hoosier Harvester video shows her at 146, entering 146 and leaving at 214. She saw a male near the Monon High Bridge. And then we have the Sarah Carbaugh seeing a man, muddy and bloody. That's it for eyewitness testimony. So they go over the eyewitness testimony. They don't get into much details about it, interestingly enough. Then they get into the 40 caliber Winchester, Smith & Wesson. Not all of the police officers know their ammunition. Smith & Wesson is the caliber of the gun, and Winchester is the manufacturer. So Winchester makes Smith & Wesson 40 calibers, and Blazer makes Smith & Wesson 40 calibers. But where was Liberty German's cell phone found? So we're talking about evidence now collected in the case. So we're talking about the 40 caliber unspent round found in between the girls. He asked, okay, so he's asking him about what evidence was collected. He's asking Tony Liggett about what evidence was collected. That 40 caliber, Liberty German's phone was found underneath Abby. Liggett watched the video that was extracted from Liberty's phone. He saw a man in blue jeans walking behind Abby. And then they get into discussion about video enhancements. And he says, as part of the state's case, does it contain the same information as the original video? Yes. So then they play the video, and this video that they played today was more extensive than the ones that they played before and that the public has heard before. And the public needs to hear this. So he asked him, how do you usually listen to this video? And Liggett says, I usually put on noise canceling headphones so I can hear the audio on it that's really hard to hear.
And this is this is the 43-second alleged 43-second video they're talking about, right?
I honestly don't know, because supposedly, so Bob was there when they played the 43-second video, and he felt when they played it that it wasn't 43 seconds, but it was just a gut feeling.
Yeah.
But he said what we heard today was not what he heard on the 43-second video. This is additional video. Like, you can hear the girls clearly saying some things that are not on the 43-second video.
So there's two videos on her phone then.
Or it's a longer video and they're only giving us pieces of it.
Because in the court documents state it's a 43-second video. We knew that months ago, according to what one of the defense filings. Now that is the recording of Bridge Guy. The particular Bridge Guy piece is allegedly a 43-second video. So interesting you say that, because what we heard the other day, I heard that in the 43-second video, you can hear one of the girls saying, about talking about the trail. There's no trail. Well, that was brought up as being stated today in the video that was heard as well. In
Yes,
that video.
but there
Okay.
was other audio besides that we didn't hear. Plus, here's the big one that's going to blow your mind. We see Bridge Guy behind Abby, and he's not like 200 yards behind her. He's like 30 feet behind her in this video.
Okay, I heard that as well. Today. Actually, it was a Barbara McDonald tweet. No. I take that back. Bob Mata. He said he didn't see that, but Barbara McDonald says she did. And like Bob said, they need to play that over and over. Play it again because he did not. Apparently, so allegedly, from what I understood, because the 43-second clip, a lot of that is the phones facing down toward the bridge. But what you're talking about right now, when Libby, pulls the phone back up to Abby kind of runs across the end of the bridge. And Bob said his take on that was, yay, I did it. Let me get off here. She just ran and jumped, like I'm done. I'm at the end. Not like I'm running because I'm scared. But that's when he said, when Libby puts the phone toward Abby to get that shot, that's when Barbara McDonald claims she saw Bridge Guy right there on the girls.
Yes.
And then that goes back to then that had me thinking what you said about crossing the bridge from the north end to the south, and it wouldn't take that long if you knew what you were doing.
A lot faster than most of us think it could be done.
Yeah.
If this video is so, here's the caveat. This is a quote unquote enhanced video. So they ran it through a software program that tries to stabilize it. And then it also blew up the location of Bridge Guy relative to Abby. So like mid video, it pauses and there's this blow up or this close up that shows Bridge Guy behind Abby. And in this close up, he looks like he's right behind her. Like he's like 30 feet behind her.
So how did they
ran it through an enhancement software of some kind, and that was not delved into at all on Cross, and I'm disappointed.
Oh, it's going to be at some point. It will have to be.
Because
now I need to figure that out. Oh, you don't think it'll be brought back up again at any point, that video or that picture or that? Because if it was like a zoomed in or blown up or altered, could they have zoomed in on the background of the photo and brought that image in closer than it actually was? A Bridge Guy behind her like that. That's what I'm trying to figure out, is how, if the photo we see of of Abby is real on the bridge that Libby took, there's literally nobody behind them that we can see. Apparently he's way back there on the north side just getting ready to enter the bridge, so you don't really see him. But then seconds later, boom, there he is. I can't,
like 40 seconds later, right?
So 40 seconds to get across the bridge? I mean, what's the timing of that video, of that shot with him right there on Abby, 30 foot behind her, compared to the 213 video when it started, him way at the north end when you can't even see him behind her? What's the time difference between that point and this point of this newer image where he's right behind them? That matters to me. How long would do people think it really takes to get across that bridge? That's so odd.
Right. And so that was new footage that I hadn't seen before, and I was off to the side, so I had a really poor view of it, but I was able to see it close enough to know I saw video and I heard audio that I have never seen or heard before, and I would venture to guess nobody else has either.
No, they shouldn't have. None of that's out there unless it was leaked. And if it was leaked, YouTube would know all about it.
Well, but they played it. But they played the 43-second clip earlier, and
that what they saw today, wasn't in the 43-second.
There may have been some overlap, but it was not identical.
Yeah. So it wasn't just a snapshot she took and saw him 30 feet behind. It was like an actual little video.
Correct. Yes.
So more audio and more video.
So then the video keeps
So
playing after we see Bridge Guy really close behind Abby. Video keeps playing. Camera is pointed down to the railroad tracks. It looks gravelly, so they're at the south end, all the way down by the top of the hill.
yeah.
So this would theoretically be where down the hill takes place, but I didn't hear down the hill. I didn't hear the word gun. I heard her say, so there's no trail here, so we can't go down, or something. She said there's something like there's no trail here. And then there's something else that was inaudible to me.
Okay, so let me pull this up and read it real quick. It's gonna be right here in this media update. Let me get my thing up. Okay, so according to Kyla Russell, News Media, this is what she posted on Twitter earlier. Tony Liggett's testimony. One of many notable moments in the testimony, he played a 43-second long Bridge Guy video and shared what he thinks was said. And this is what he thought was, this is Liggett's
Hold on,
interpretation.
I was getting there.
Okay. I thought you were just talking about that. That's why I thought, well, wait a minute,
No.
guess what you're talking about. Okay.
No, I was getting there, but I was describing what we heard and saw in the gallery. And I think that we heard and saw some things that were not in the other 43-second video, but maybe I could be wrong because I haven't seen the other 43-second video. But seeing Bridge Guy 30 feet-ish behind Abby, I believe was new to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But Tony Liggett says he has listened to this video hundreds of times, if not more, and he likes to listen to it on noise-canceling headphones. And this is what his interpretation, after hearing it hundreds of times, of what he heard. Bridge Guy. Oh, this is what I heard. So I wrote down what I heard first. At the end of that, when he gets down to the south end, so he's right behind Abby, and then the camera points down, but we hear him say, "Hi, guys." And I believe it's Libby says hi. Like,
yeah,
not really confidently, but she says hi back. And he goes, "How's it going?" That's what I heard. And that's all I heard at the end of that video. Liggett says, "This is my interpretation." Abby says, "Is he right here?" Abby whispers, "Don't leave me up here." Libby says, "That's the path." Libby says, "Is that a gun?" Abby says, "There's no path." And then Liggett says he hears a gun rack after that.
Oh, really? He said he heard the gun rack, huh?
Yes. I did not hear it. Bob did not hear it. I don't, and like half a dozen other people I talked to didn't hear it.
She didn't state that in this either. I mean, everything you just said is what she claims she said that he said as well. Except when one of the girls say hi, then the voice says down the hill. So it's not guys down the hill, it's guys hi down the hill after the gun is racked. So when they released guys down the hill, they did what we all suspected. That was not said in one sentence. It was two separate things said, spliced together. For them to get a better, to put his voice out there.
I heard, "Hi guys, hi, how's it going?" That's what I heard.
Do you think you heard one of the girls say, "Is that a gun?" Or "That's a gun"?
Nope, I did not hear that. Absolutely not.
Because she said that he says, "Is he right here?" Like you said, and "Don't leave me up here," Abby says.
That's Liggett's interpretation. Liggett is saying this out loud on the stand. Yes.
Right. And then he says that it says, "This is the path, that be a gun. There's no path here." And then he says he hears guys, and the one of the girls says hi, and then the words down the hill. Like,
Yes.
so
Yes. Yeah.
they come on. We need to. Where's our audio video experts at that can really unbiased that clean this up for us and get it all out there at one uninterrupted video, not your spliced together words here and there and your zoomed in images and your everybody hearing different things. They it's crazy, right? I mean, the jury
I
needs to
wonder
hear
how.
it.
Yes, absolutely. The jury needs to hear it unadulterated.
Yeah, and if they need to put on noise canceling headphones like you, Liggett, then give them a pair.
Right.
Judge might have a problem with it. She wants all that shit turned back in at the end of the day, but still, they need to hear it in that unedited version. And sometimes you can't make out what's exactly being said on these raw audios, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not saying that, because I want the person who did this to these girls to be caught, and punished to the full extent of the law. And if Rick Allen's your guy, he's your guy, but you got to do better at proving it, because right now you're not. Now you got this video and audio, but I don't know if this audio is Rick Allen speaking. I mean, right now it appears it's the bridge guy person, but I'm not even convinced the bridge guy's Rick Allen. You know what I mean? It could be somebody else. Circumstantial stuff still in my mind. They got to bring it home with that bullet. There's no other way to do it. Like, they really need to bring that home, and it has to be more than a theory that came from that gun, that bullet.
Right.
It can't be theory.
We know from the arrest warrant or the search warrant. I think it was the arrest warrant that the scientific methodology used to tie that unspent round to Rick's gun is quote unquote subjective. Like, it says it literally there in the warrant. It's subjective analysis.
And so now that then Judge Gold determined that Tobin was an expert in the metallurgy field, but he's not a weapons expert, she said. Because I've got that filing here too somewhere. So if it's suggestive like that, why can't we get to hear from this other person expert that the defense wants brought in? Because now, if I'm the defense, you put your guy up there to tell me this is the gun, this is the bullet that came from that gun, then I'm gonna do they got to make sure they do really good questioning with that. You know what I mean? Because you got to prove it came from that gun.
So after Liggett says that he hears a gun cock in the video, Rosie objects. He says this is mischaracterizing the video because of, and I'm paraphrasing, because of speculation. Like, it's extrapolation outside of the video that we can hear and see.
Right.
And believe it or not, that objection is sustained.
Oh, wow.
Rosie says move to strike, and very quietly she says sustained. So all of that is supposed to be disappeared, but the jury's already heard it. So how do you unhear something like
they
that?
have to determine. Well, they're going to have to determine what they hear on that video for themselves outside of what he's telling them they heard. Do you know what I mean? They're going to have to, are they going to ask, how a lot of times when the jury's going to deliberation, after closing arguments and things of that nature, they have questions and they want to see, they see this again or that again, particular evidence. They may come back at some point and say, we want to hear this again. Especially during deliberation. If they get in that deliberation room and they start talking about it and they're in disagreement as to what they heard and didn't hear, they're going to ask to review that video again in full length. And they damn well better give them that shot. Gall better not deny it.
Yep.
That's a mistrial if you do, in my opinion. Because you can't. Go ahead.
In my notes, After Rosie objects, it's sustained, move to strike, sustained. McClelland still asks him, what did you hear next? Guys down the hill. So I don't quite understand that. If Rosie's already objected to Liggett speculating about what he heard, how does he get to ask him another question about it? That's the order of my notes, though.
Yeah. It's so funny how all of a sudden these officers, their recollection of things or their interpretation fits what it needs to fit. You know what I mean? We've always heard that there was the sound of a gun racking. We've always heard that there was something about a gun being said by one of the girls. How those rumors started and where they all come from, I don't know. Leaks have occurred here and there, and things have been said, but that we've always heard that. So now that I still got to hear it with my own ears if I'm the jury. I want to hear that video again, especially under deliberation. If you've only played it once, maybe twice now in this process, by the time I get to that deliberation room in a couple weeks, might need to hear it again. And there was something about that brought up about the jury needing to, like the evidence, like that we can't just give them a whole file in case there are things on there that we didn't allow in court. And then the defense is like, well, we can break it down. They're going to have to do things like that because the jury's going to absolutely want to see things again during deliberation. And these are important things to look at and hear, especially if you want them to believe that guy that was way off in the distance. Now, all of a sudden, he's right there on them and he's got a gun and forcing them down the hill. I'm going to want to hear all that again, not just that one time in court. I bet they ask for it again during deliberations if they don't get to hear it again before then.
I sure hope so.
I hope so too, because if people it's like you're saying, say if you heard it one way, Bob heard it a different, and Barb heard it a different way, the jurors are going to be the same way, right?
Yep.
Tom, Dick, and Harry may not all agree. They all heard the same thing. So as a little group, they need to hear it again. So yeah, I would be surprised if they didn't ask to hear that again. I sure would. If I was unclear.
Yes, 100%. And then if you have Judge Bev or Judge Goal, you might not get what you ask for. I still think that affected the Karen Reed case because their very first question was, can we see more of this? And Judge Bev's response was, you have everything that you're going to get to review on this case.
So if it was something that was already admitted into evidence, they should be able to see it. If it was something that was...
She didn't feel that way. No, she did not feel that way.
But was that pertaining to something that was already admitted into evidence?
Oh,
they were denied.
You're asking me to dust off some cobwebs. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm saying that doesn't... That to me is the oddest thing. You don't deny the jury the chance to overlook the evidence that was brought into court.
So devil's advocate, say it was something that was not admitted into evidence, then her response should be, that's something that was not admitted into evidence, so I can't allow you to see it. But if you want to review something that has been admitted into evidence, then you can ask for that. But her response was, you have everything you're going to get to review on this. That was her response. Yes.
I don't like that case, so I didn't follow it. I very loosely followed it on Twitter because it was right there. You couldn't avoid it.
That was her response to the very first jury question was, you have everything you're going to get. So there were almost no jury questions after that, surprisingly enough. Sarcasm.
Well, it may not have benefited her to act that way, apparently.
Well, she's not going to retry the case. She's going to be going on to, I think she gets rotated out to another district or whatever they call them in Massachusetts in January
good. Well, if you are going to hold a second trial on somebody, they need a whole new judge and a whole new prosecution. They don't need the same assholes. Hear that go? Come on. Justice in America is looking a little screwy right now. We got some things we need to work on here as far as what types of evidence and are allowed in, and how long you're allowed to put trials off for years and years and years, and this is all kind of things that these lawyers can pull as tactics, but a lot of it needs to be like common sense stuff. You know what I mean? I don't have anything wrong with a jury reviewing something again that was already admitted into evidence that you've already shown them once. If they need to review it again to make their sound decision the way you just instructed them, then you need to show them that material again. That's ridiculous. What kind of law? I gotta look at the law on that, because I don't think that sounds right. That's just not right, man.
That ain't right.
Damn, Joe, don't send me on rabbit holes. I got enough of those. I'm trying to make accurate notes and stuff. I ain't got time.
All right. So
I do that to myself. I'll get sidetracked and I'll be off on something else.
Right.
Like shit.
So I'm bringing us back to the notes. We're on page 21 of 35 pages. Holy, we're not making it all through tonight. I can tell you that right now.
I bet you're tired. I know you. Or you haven't even eaten anything yet, have you?
I got my dinner delivered about an hour ago. So yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
All right. So we're continuing with Liggett's direct from McClellan. I think it was McClellan. I didn't write down the notes of who was doing direct. I did on cross. So they're going through the evidence that was evaluated in this investigation. They did a BMV search. They figured out that Richard Allen had 2 cars registered to him, a 2016 Ford Focus and a 2006 Ford F500. They heard witness testimony. Oh, no. When Tony Liggett went to the CVS to take pictures of Richard Allen's car, his 2016 Ford Focus, he discovered that it was backed into the parking space.
At the CVS?
At the CVS.
Right.
But he
So-
said, according to what I know about what eyewitnesses said, that his car was also backed in. He didn't say his car. He said witnesses said they saw a car backed into the CPS on February 13th.
Right. So backed into the CPS parking lot, and now his car is backed into his spot at the CVS where he worked.
Right. So here's a good point that
They're
Bob
trying to
made
establish a
earlier.
pattern.
Do you know people that back into parking spots?
I do.
And do you do it most often when you can, like 90% of the time? Like if you can back into a spot, will you back into it?
Me?
Yes.
No, but I know people who do.
Yes.
My cousin was one of them. My son does. I mean, like a lot of people do it. They like to be able to back in and just pull out. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like a
I'm like,
habit.
why are
Like
you?
if
why
you're
are
in
you
the habit
doing?
of backing in, you're gonna
Yeah.
back in 90%
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's not an oddball thing for a person to do, because people do it. But I see what they're trying to establish in their brain, that that's a pattern of parking for him.
Oh my
So
gosh, he likes to back into
has
a
to be
parking
his
spot.
car.
He must
Yeah.
have murdered the girls.
Must have been him. He's back. He's a good backwards driver like Tomater. Watch him go. Lord, now they're trying to build circumstantial on the way he parks.
Well, more circumstantial. So he also did an investigation into Richard Allen's handgun permit and found that he had a lifetime handgun permit in the state of Indiana. And
Is that abnormal?
No, I've got one.
Right.
And my son has one, and my other son has one.
Hey, I'm in Florida where there's a lot of people carry.
I'm not saying I carry, I'm just saying I have a permit.
Well, I mean, permits, whatever you want to call it. They carry around here, permits and all.
Well, Indiana is actually, since 2022, has been an open carry state.
Open carry.
You don't need permits anymore in the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
But there was actually something made about that earlier, and somebody tried to say we were an open carry state back in 2017, and we were not. But it doesn't matter. He had a permit.
As long as he had that permit, doesn't matter. Yeah.
So when he took the pictures of Rick Allen's car at the CVS, he said it had those types of spoked rims where you could, quote unquote, see daylight through the wheels, which is the exact same way that Mullins worded it. Could see daylight through the wheels.
Well, I wonder if they got together and they went over their testimony prior to.
Oh no.
You know that.
That might
No, nothing to see here. Look, woman doing a shadow ban. That you change your name. Woman just doing the tip. Is that you, girl? Oh my gosh.
All right, so he says that about the wheels, and then they talk about the interview that they did in 2022. He says Rick Allen changed the times that he was at the trails, and he might have. He said when he was at the trails, he was wearing a blue or black Carhartt coat and a skull cap, and he parked at the CPS. So he told them this in the interview.
Yeah.
And that when he went out on the trails, he went towards the Monon High Bridge from the Freedom Bridge. He saw three girls near the Freedom Bridge when he first started out. And he said he didn't see anybody else that whole time that he was out there for that hour-ish.
But multiple people saw him.
If you believe the eyewitnesses were all spotting them.
Right. So, and I've often wondered this. So, I mean, throughout the years, of course, as things have played out, were those three girls the only people he, not that he remembers seeing, but can recollect anything about them to say? And he never crossed paths with Betsy entering and exiting the trail in the Mary Gerard area there near the Mears entrance. Nobody else saw.
We'll get into eyewitness testimony details.
I mean, as far as Rick Allen's concerned, as far as what he saw out there, did he not? He never once stated that he saw the girls, Abby and Libby. Right. Even when he was out on the bridge doing the walk and looking at the stock ticker and looking at the fish, the only thing he recalled seeing people-wise were the three girls.
Well, he said he saw three girls. One was older and two were younger.
Yeah, and they were the three girls that were walking, and Riley was one of those girls. But he didn't see anybody else out there with the other people that were around. And there couldn't have been too many. Now look, but right now, and we've always known this, Betsy Blair, Sarah Carball, Riley Voorhees. They're the only three people out there that day that literally see much of Rick Allen.
No, hold on. I object. Speculation, mischaracterization. They see an unknown male.
An unknown male. But I mean, as far as anybody else that was out there that day, where are their statements of who they saw and didn't see? Did any of them see anybody similar to looking like the bridge guy?
Let's say
how many people were actually out there that day? Was it super crowded or was it not? Apparently it was not super crowded. Do you know what I'm saying?
Betsy Blair's description didn't even look like Richard Allen. He was a young guy with fuzzy brown hair.
And well, they asked her about that hair. Could she have mistaken a hat for the hair and this and that? And Rick Allen's wife, when she was interviewed and asked about Rick Allen's hair, she stated he always kept it cut really short, like military, since getting out of the military. That he never had longer hair or poofy hair, according to Rick Allen's wife. And I've seen a lot of photos of Rick Allen over time, and I've never not seen one where he's got the longer hair, or it would stick out from underneath the hood or a hat, or even, you know, anything like that. It's always been shorter. And of course, he had the goatee, but they had, I would do, whose statement, where was that at? Was Betsy Blair? But they asked her,
Betsy
could
Blair,
she have
yeah.
mistaken a hat for the hair? You know, and I think she said yes, but because she was like 50 feet away from the guy. So I know that Sleuthy has been typing up Andrea's notes, and she's dropping. I got those all saved, but the testimony that she has gotten typed up right now is Becky Patty, Kelsey's, Derek German's, Derek Giancola's, Jason Page, Dwayne Datsman, and Brian Olahi. As far as the ones I've got that are typed out that we read. And then, of course, the opening and closing defense statements and all that are openings rather, not closings. So she's doing a good job as getting Andrea's notes typed out like that. But I don't have full notes of everyone yet. So I'm still reviewing stuff as I'm going through it. As far as what exactly Betsy was asked and what she said back. She was not anywhere near the type of witness that Riley was. Or not Riley, but Sarah Carball. That lady got some interesting testimony. From what everybody's account, even a very unbiased opinions out there, she was a very combative witness.
Yes. And also very, very engaging of the jury.
Very much so. I heard that she got up and demonstrated how she saw the man walking, that she passed for 30 seconds as she went down the street. She was glancing. I mean, she was hard staring. Are you even seeing where you're driving now? But she got up and demonstrated to the jury how he walked and all that. Like, but she was very combative, and then her statements was kind of strange. So I don't really want to go into her whole things. There's like a 2 or 3 page notes on just her testimony alone. You know what I mean? We'll be here for a while if we get into her.
Yes. Yep. She's mentioned casually a few times today, but nothing in depth. So continuing with Richard Allen's interview with Tony Liggett in 2022, he says he saw the 3 girls, didn't see anybody else. He probably drove his 2016 Ford Focus, but he didn't really remember for sure 5 years later. And there was a little bit of discussion about how many of us do remember accurately 5 years later. But he did say he went out to the first platform on the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And in my objectivity, and I know I shared this with you before, but if we're going to talk about how flooded that stream was on February 13th, and it was carrying like 3.5 times the normal amount of water through there, 17 tons of water per second was going through that stream bed. What fish are below the Monon High Bridge that you're watching in that muddy floodwater? I'm sorry, but you're not. There's no muddy floodwater visibility of fish at all. And if it's 573 cubic feet per second, there might be some eddies under there, like near around the bridge. There might be some eddies, but they're not going to be clear eddies. It's going to be muddy water. So I have my skepticism about that aspect of it.
Well, yeah, I don't know how clear that creek normally is.
Well, Bob Mata said he went out there on it and he was able to watch the fish as the creek is right now, but it's been a really, really dry summer and fall in this area.
Yeah. Because we've got some pretty muddy rivers, or, deep rivers and shallow rivers and things of that nature. And some waters are really, really clear. A lot of the streams and the creeks are clear compared to the rivers. Like, I wouldn't be able to go to the river and just stand on the bank and look down and see fish, right? It's dark. You can't see that far.
Right.
Only in certain spots. So as far as Deer Creek, though, right under the bridge, from what I've heard over the years, it was clear enough to see fish.
Yes,
but when you bring up the flood, the flood waters and things of that, and the water's moving quicker than normal, right? Because of the flooding and things of that nature. So, I mean, could that have been something he normally did when he did go out there? You know, I go out there and I watch fish. But
Right.
this day I was looking at my stock ticker.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
We
I know
don't
it's all,
because it was 5 years
yeah.
later. They didn't follow up with him for 5 years. He didn't tell that
Yeah,
to Dulin. He didn't tell that to
exactly.
Dulin. He told that to Liggett 5 years later.
Well, you know, they got no one else to blame but themselves for all this fiasco. Literally, especially if you can prove, or if he's found guilty, that's on you, Carroll County. You did this. You waited 5 years to do and didn't, and you come out saying, just wait. Today's could be the day. Yeah, it could be if y'all find that tip. I mean, all these statements you've come out over and over and over and over made. What were y'all making them about? Just you wait. We can't wait to share what we have one day. What do you have? Now, where's that partial fingerprint you spoke of in an interview with Barb McDonald, Sheriff? Where's this DNA? Was it a mixture of DNA that was so complicated you couldn't figure out whose DNA it was? Now, I did a deep dive on that last night as well, especially when I was, because I've listened to Paul Holes talk about it so many times. And he said, you know, in that little clip I made, that little video I made where he says, you know, he had briefly spoken to the Delphi investigators and consulted with them about the case. The only reason to bring in Paul Holes and consult with Paul Holes is if you got DNA, because he caught the Golden State Killer. How? DNA, genealogy. So CC Moore was never brought in, but you spent 20 grand on genetic genealogy. So that tells me you did have some sort of DNA. Was it a mixture? When I say mixture, between the victims and your assailant, because of the fact that there was blood and things of that nature there. Now, was it a mixture of DNA, and you got to separate these DNAs? Was that the complication all along with your DNA evidence? What about your untested hair strands? You know, all these things that still, the man himself placed himself at the bridge. So you can bring me all the witnesses you need. You can bring me the car footage that shows him driving by at 1:27, the same time he says he got there. That all means nothing. It's circumstantial. And circumstantial does help build your case and point towards something, but it's not evidence. It's circumstantial. So we got to get to the point, you know, get to the heart and soul of that. Because some people are telling you, well, like I saw the comments a minute ago about, you know, use common sense. I am trying to use common sense. That's why I have questions. Common sense tells me the man himself said I'm there, but so were the other witnesses that didn't see the girls but saw the bridge guy. You know, I mean, you got to have more. You got to get there with more than this, because right now you don't have enough. And they're able to bring doubt about the evidence you do have because of the way you chose to collect it and not collect it. Things of that nature. All those things matter in a criminal court case, especially when you're about to put someone away for the rest of their entire life. And I promise you, I'm not the person that's going to come out the gate with every single case I look at and cover and go, oh my God, crazy cops are stupid. That's not me. I don't want to believe the cops have the wrong person. Ever. I want to believe you did your job right and you got the man. You got him. But this case is different. You know, Karen Reed was different too. And I don't know if that woman's innocent or guilty. I actually just watched the other night for the very first time. I turned on Dateline because I had to put everything down into my devices and shit. But what I do, I go to true crime. Turn on Dateline. It was about Karen Reed. I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna watch this now. You know, so I watched it. But you know, this case has just got too many holes in it, too many what ifs, too much circumstantial stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that testimony tomorrow from this so-called gun expert. Do we know what kind of expert this is, Joe, for the gun, the ballistics testing?
I think it's the ISP tool mark expert. I believe
The tool mark expert. Okay, yeah. You got. If you're not allowed to bring Tobin in for various reasons, and then the guy you do allow in better have some really good credentials if you want me to believe what they're about to tell me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't have much faith that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, because when you go to put experts on the stand, I like to hear from both sides of the table, you know, so I can kind of make up my mind about which one's more believable, which one explain this better, which will proof, it's just a lot you can tell, but that's not a fired bullet though. I know that fired bullets is way different than matching an unspent round, so there's a lot of sketchy versions of that type of evidence out there. So I'm really interested to see what they do
Right.
about that.
And there
Goodness.
was a Toolmar case that went to the Maryland Supreme Court where that evidence was actually thrown out, but it wasn't quite
Yeah.
close enough to this case for me to have faith that that ruling would be appropriate here.
Yeah.
I actually think that may have been about spent rounds and not unspent rounds.
Yeah, and I also wondered that, I doubt they recovered any sort of usable DNA off that unspent round from the fact that it was in the ground, at least 2 inches that we know of, and how long it had actually been there. If it legit came from Bridge Guy, it was only there for a couple days. So could it have still had DNA on it? And the Bordeaux method was developed because of bullets. And this is the same system they use to extract the DNA off the sheath in Idaho 4 case, because it's a very minute, very small amount of DNA. But this is a vacuum type system. And it was developed, and I did a whole deep dive on it a few weeks back. I've got a lot of stuff saved on it. But if you're smart, you're going to try to pull everything you can from that thing. But at the same time, you don't want to do too much to it to alter it, right? So would trying to extract DNA cause a problem if you're going to try to match it to a gun? And they had this bullet for 5 years before they recovered the weapon that they tried to match it to. So there's a lot of unanswered questions with that as well. Preservation of that bullet. Was these preliminary tests looking for markings done very early when you found it, and you're going to use that to compare to the newer round you just unspent from this gun to test it against, because you
Right.
can't just look at the barrel, you can't just look at the gun and go, oh yeah, I think it came. You need to eject a bullet right from it and then compare those. Am I wrong?
No. So spoiler alert, that's actually some of the final testimony today with Holman. And that was something along the lines of the lab told you to send them a Smith & Wesson Sig Sauer unspent round so they could, oh no, not round, gun. Send us a Sig Sauer 40 caliber handgun so we can match it to this unspent round.
Oh heck. Okay, so it's got to be gun specific. If that's the case, and you're telling us it could have come out of anybody's gun that had that type of gun.
Well, they said, okay, so 2 points. First of all, to clarify, first they said either a Sig Sauer or a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber, so we can match it to this round. But that's creating a result from your experiments. That's not experimenting to come to a conclusion. Like if you're literally scientifically evaluating this evidence, you're not trying to start with a conclusion that you want to match this round to this gun. And that is exactly the way that Baldwin posed this to Holman in the end of the testimony today. But we're not there yet, and I got to get going soon.
Yeah.
I've been up for 21 hours now, almost exactly.
Oh, I know. I know you've had a very, very long day, and we do appreciate you taking the time to come out here tonight and talk to us about it and bring us your notes from the day. I know your day started early. There's just so many unanswered questions still. And you're right, though. I mean, if you're going to test that gun, it has to be ejected from the actual gun you think that it came from originally to get the, to, even if there's any markings that are going to be available. And the fact that they kept Weber's gun for 6 months, same type of gun, and it was kept. He didn't. He lived there. Did he never go out there and practice around the woods or shoot at things? Like, I mean, if he probably would have done target practice in his own yard, but you just don't ever know. But I don't know. It's gonna be interesting testimony for sure. It sucks that we just can't watch court TV and watch it ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you could just sit at home and from the comfort of your damn house and watch it instead of having to go fight some line and hope you get a spot. I mean, because I could imagine being there that early and then not get in like you did that one morning. Oh my God. You had to wait and go in the afternoon. Like, that's so, like, that would have been so aggravating to me.
It was aggravating. I just worked my way through it.
Right. I mean, what are you going to do? Right. You got to
Yep.
suck it up and put on, pull your pants up and go on with your day. And it is what it is. And I will mentally prepare myself for things like, okay, well, if I don't get in, it is what it is. I'll get in, I'll just do this instead. But yeah, it's still aggravating though. No matter what. And, but we do appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it for sure.
Yep. Let's continue with the notes tomorrow. We'll hit it again.
Yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow and we'll figure out when we want to go live again, what you're going to do, and we'll see what we can come up with. I know this weekend I do want to hold a longer, and it's probably going to be a daytime thing. I don't have any plans to go anywhere. I don't have a car since it got totaled, but I don't have any plans to go anywhere for a while. So I do plan to be home this weekend, and I do want to put together a live where we can just kind of go over the entire week's testimony, with the different key witnesses that came out and talked and kind of go over things again. So I do appreciate you coming and hosting, and especially swamp signal bullshit.
And appreciate everybody jumping in to chat, and appreciate you, Butterfly. Thank you so much for modding for us.
Yeah, she's probably got to get to sleep too. She's got work in the morning too. Bless her heart. We love you, girl. All right. Well, thanks again. Yeah, like Joe said, guys, thanks for coming in and hanging out with us, and the conversation's always good.
Always. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, thanks. Good night.